All right,
Cool,
man.
man.
Well, we've been talking about a lot already.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Um, just, how have you been, bro? How's your day?
Good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, tell me about Muay Thai a little bit, because you're getting into it
Yeah.
a little bit, right? You've
Yeah.
been doing it for a few months now?
Yeah, just about a month.
Just
like
about
I'd
a
say a
month.
month in total. Like
Yeah.
actually taking it kind of seriously.
Okay.
Because I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a while.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
At the club.
both. I've been doing it at Petarex as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I find that people in jiu-jitsu are super friendly.
Okay.
And they're
yeah.
all like chill, and they're all like, you know.
Right.
Whereas like Muay Thai is like a little harsher.
Okay.
Yeah, like the people involved are like a lot more sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, like more focused and more like,
Yeah.
I don't know, militaristic maybe is the word I'd use.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like you're fucking up, they're like,
Yeah.
hey, don't do that anymore.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember I was at the blast at Petarex. Like it was.
Yeah.
Like it's something about maybe it's just the whole male like masculine
Yeah.
community of it, but
Uh-huh.
being around guys and like you're fighting, and I think there's a lot to say about like the physical contact you get, because if you're not in certain fields and aspects of life, you're not usually getting a lot of physical contact. So being there where you're fighting, especially grappling,
Yeah.
you're all up in someone's like whole.
Oh, dude, it's weird. Like when I first
Yeah.
started, I was like, what is this? Like,
Strange.
it's weird.
Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you, man. Like, everyone pushes each other there. And I find like whenever I go to the gym by myself,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, I'm chilling,
Right.
taking like 5-minute breaks.
Yeah.
But you go
of
to Muay
course.
Thai and people are like, they can see that you're not putting in 100%.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
And you stop putting in like less work and doing this like a kick to the face.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Or it's like a fake kick to the face. That even feels even worse. It's like, oh, if they actually like
Yeah.
could, they would.
I remember I was like really doubting it.
Yeah.
Like really doubting whether or not I should do Muay Thai.
Word. Okay.
And then this guy was like, dude, you have a really good kick. Like you've won, and like you have this like tool that you can use. I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
I can maybe pull this off.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Yes, you've been enjoying it.
I've been loving it, man.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the whole thing about I feel like people who learn how to fight
Mhm.
in some sense are always just more positive, because you have that skill, that tool
In the
tool
pocket.
belt,
Yeah,
right?
I fully agree, man.
Yeah.
It's like there's something about dudes who know that they can kick most dudes' asses
Yeah.
that are generally weirdly calm.
Yeah.
You expect them to kind of be like, the stereotype is like that they'd be like,
Egotistical.
yeah, but they're generally not.
No, not at
That's
all.
what I found.
Cause then you don't have to. I feel like if you don't have it, you act like you do.
Mhm.
So when you actually do have it, you're just
You're like, whatever, man.
you're chilling. Yeah.
Yeah.
If this guy starts something, like I know I'm in the best sort of state where I could respond in
Yeah.
whichever way I want, because I know how to respond
Yeah.
to that.
For me, it's also made me really respect, like, or know when I couldn't. Because there's all sorts of dudes
Okay.
out there who, like, believe that they can just,
Yes.
like,
Oh my god.
do you know what I
Yes,
mean?
bro,
There's, like, those dudes,
100%.
did you see that survey where it was, like, not to change the subject here, but it was, like,
No.
a majority of men
Yeah.
believe that they could land a 747.
7-4. Oh, a
Like
Boeing.
you know what I mean? Like a jet. They're like,
Yes,
oh, like,
right.
in the cockpit right now, could you land it?
Yeah.
And the majority of dudes are like, 100%.
Yeah. Well, even you saying that, I'm like, yeah, I could
You definitely couldn't, dude.
pull up on the thing a little bit as you go down. I've played a simulator before or
Oh,
something.
actually, you know what? If you played a simulator, dude, who knows? I played those simulators, I crash every time. But
Yeah.
it's the same with Muay Thai. I guarantee if you did like a survey of dudes, like,
Oh,
hey,
100%.
you're going against some dude who's like within like a 30-pound window of you. Will you take him?
Yeah.
Will you come out on top?
Yeah.
I guarantee the majority of dudes are like, absolutely, bro.
Absolutely.
It's like,
yeah.
how many fights have you been in? 0.
No, completely. Dude, and that's what happens when I think you start doing like some sort of martial art. You just get humbled
Yeah.
right away.
100%.
Because even I had that mindset going in. It's like, dude, if I go on a fight, I'll be good.
Yeah.
I'll be straight. And I went to like my first boxing lesson. I was like I
Yeah.
would get rocked. Like I have to actually be kind of careful.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
100%. Yeah, like my general feeling when I finish any martial arts class is
Yeah.
I'm glad I worked out.
Yeah.
I'm glad I've like met these cool people.
Yeah.
But like, God, I hope no one ever comes after me because like I'm fucked.
For real. Just for now. Until
Yeah.
you like build it
Well,
up.
even with like some jiu-jitsu under my belt.
Yeah.
Like even because I'm like I would rank myself as like a good beginner
Yeah.
at jiu-jitsu.
Like a little bit.
Oh yeah. We good there?
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I would consider myself like a good beginner at jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Even then, like there's no way, like I wouldn't want to get into a fight with anyone ever,
not at all.
you know, like
Not at all.
yeah, but
Yeah. Oh my god. Especially tumbling. Like imagine tumbling with a guy who's like 50 pounds your size or something. It's like
yeah,
until you get to the point where like you're really confident, you get to like that black belt BJJ.
Yeah,
like
true.
I really could roll with someone.
Yeah.
I'm confident I could take them. I'm definitely nowhere near there.
I've met guys like that though. I've met guys like my size,
Yeah.
or because like sometimes I believe I'm like there's no way you can overcome the.
Okay. A little bit of technical difficulties. That's okay.
We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like going off that, you want to talk a little bit about like skill building, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure where you're trying to go with that. So like things like Muay Thai, when you specifically said skills, what were you talking about?
Well, I find that man, this is something I like wrestle with every day.
Okay.
I kind of consider myself someone that's like a natural jack of all trades.
Okay.
And I've never envisioned myself becoming a master at anything.
Right.
You know, and like I see you doing like all the crazy shit that you're doing. Like whenever I see you, I'm always like, oh, what's he up to right now? You're like, I'm like running like a spin class, or like I'm just like training for a triathlon. I'm like,
oh,
how do you? I'm always wondering like how you develop a mindset where you're like, I'm going all in on this. Because as soon as I get like, I'm like, oh, that would be kind of cool, and then I try it once, I'm like, there's a bunch of like loopholes, or like
loopholes.
Not loopholes, like flaws to whatever thing I'm training, and I'm like, this isn't useful in my day-to-day life.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it makes me question why I'm even doing this.
Yeah.
Do you ever have that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'd love to answer. When you say like flaws, though, like what do you mean by that?
Okay, like an example of like I love jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
I wanted to do jiu-jitsu for like self-defense.
Yeah.
And then I realized I was like, dude, if someone just kneed me in the stomach at some point here, like I'd be toast.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, and then I started doing Muay Thai. And then I'm like, if someone just wrestled me to the ground, and then I kind of like I'm putting them together slowly now.
Yeah.
You know, I got a bit of striking, a bit of wrestling, or a bit of like grappling and stuff, and I'm like, now it's slowly melding together. But on their own, they're not skills that are really like in like applicable to the real world.
Yeah.
Because we're like when if you're like defending yourself, no one's like, all right, sorry, bro. Like no biting.
Yeah.
No knees, no striking here. You know.
You avoid the eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
No, I totally get what you mean. I think it's it's funny. I'm like big into like the Twitter community.
Okay.
Like I really found like a kind of like an online presence there, because it's just there's a lot of guys who are into the same boat. They're all just trying to build right now. They're all just trying to do a bunch of random stuff, and they all use this term of like very like schizo.
Okay.
And like that's how they describe their. It kind of sounds like what you're saying with yourself too. Is you just have this desire to want to do so many different things.
Yes.
At once,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
I think it's just what you're saying, where it's like, at some point there's a harsh reality where you realize doing one thing isn't enough. Like if I become good at one thing, if you're looking at it from like an extrinsic view, no one will really care. If you're looking at an intrinsic view, that could be amazing, but knowing that you want to do a bunch of different things, if you have that kind of mindset where you just want to learn as much as possible, going all in on one thing just won't do it for you. Right? So I found, like when I was, before I went to university, I was just super into video games. And like, of course, like everyone, COVID, just happens. And I have this thing where it's just like, I start something, I want to be the best at it. Right? So I was video games, and I just grinded that, 8-9 hours a day, went to like top 100 in Canada. And it's sick. Okay. And usually if I say that, I won't get that reaction, because it'd be like, okay, that's cool. What the fuck?
I admire anyone who gets to the top of anything.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Like if I meet someone, like I know nothing about ballet. But if someone was like, I'm in like the Canadian ballet thing, I don't know, right? I'd be like, that's crazy. Tell me about that. You know, I love talking to people that are like, that are masters. Yes. But I can never see myself doing that.
Right.
Yeah, I don't like just because like of what you're talking. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just a different mindset, right? But like I love that, and that's like when we first talked to like really talk that one Carsa shift and ask you to hop on the podcast, because there's like I can tell like you're very interested in other people, and you like hearing what they're up to, and like that just makes the other person feel good and just very easy to talk. So that's a great trait.
Thank you.
To have.
I appreciate that. You know what? Actually, I will say the one thing that I've never ever seen a flaw in is building up an ability to have intimate conversations.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I've always thought that is like such a like super critical skill.
Yeah.
That's applicable in so many different ways, and it's gotten me so far in life.
Completely.
As soon as I started like with that, like actually like trying and like developing philosophies around it.
Yeah.
I like my life has just like quality of life is just
right.
exponentially increased. Yeah. And it's everywhere. Like it's like when I go to Muay Thai, I'm always just like, hey man, like how's it going, bro?
Yeah.
Just like guys like I don't know.
Right.
And it's funny, like a lot of these guys are like tough dudes that are like construction workers.
Yes.
But they've never had a dude come up to them and be like,
how's your day?
hey, how's it going, man? Like good to see you again.
Yeah.
You know, it's all this sort of like macho culture. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's the one thing. And you can't fake it.
You can't.
You can't. You have to. Like you have to be genuine.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as people can tell you have like an agenda, or you're not being genuine.
Yeah.
Like there's this little switch in everybody's brains that can just tell.
Subconsciously.
Yeah. Even when people are like, even people that are like, not. I don't mean to sound judgmental, but like people that aren't very intelligent.
Right.
And you can if you're trying to get something out of them, they can tell.
Yeah.
You know.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like my whole thing is I love the idea of having like a student mindset. In the sense that just you can learn something from like everyone, right? Like thinking about someone who does ballet at that masterful level, that takes a lot of discipline, that takes a lot of practice, that takes like so many other skills that sure you don't have to be able to twirl on your toes, but you can understand that person put a lot of work.
That's
to
my
get
thing.
there,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's incredible, dude. Like anything, any skill.
Yeah.
Any skill, really, even the ones that we consider like on a societal level, we have this hierarchy of like valuable skills.
Yes.
And even the ones that are at the bottom, you know, like, I don't know, SoundCloud rappers kind of get shit on.
Right.
You know? Whenever I meet a guy who's like really into rapping, and he's like, dude, I got like 10,000 streams.
Yes.
I'm like, that's crazy. That means you've made some sort of significant, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and they can like just anyone who's passionate and they can just go on about it. Like I met this guy in Argentina. Just clicked immediately because he's trying to go down the music route, posting content, but he knew everything, the ins and outs of the music business. And that's just so cool to listen to someone passionately talk about something they love, even if you don't know anything about it.
I went through a phase. I told you that I like dropped out of university and became a plumber for a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
So near the tail end of that, I was already sort of like, I need to get out of this.
Right.
And so I was kind of considering what I would do.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, I found that like the suffering that I got from being a construction worker, which I dude, me personally, I suffered. Some people are like built for that, but I suffered, and that suffering like propelled me forward.
Right.
It made me consider like all sorts of stuff, like future endeavors. Yeah. Sorry, man. I don't know how I got on this topic. It was
no, that's okay.
You mentioned what did you just mention?
I was talking about the curse from Argentina.
Yes.
And then
I started talking to a dude who was like super heavily into the like he was like an advertiser. Somehow he like
marketing?
I think so, but he would like he's a recruiter / marketer of other artists.
Yeah.
And I listened to him talk and I'm like, dude, there's this whole other world that I've never even known existed. And people are just living an entire lifestyle and funding their livelihoods on that thing that like before right now I'd never even seen.
You don't even understand.
Didn't even know existed.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And I find that fascinating as well. Just people just who are like ingenuitive, who are inventive with all sorts of different stuff, who don't go through that like natural or not natural, like the classic degree route, who kind of like forge their own path.
Yeah.
I always think that's incredible.
No, it's amazing. It's just in my mind, like I was saying, it's just people who are like living, you know, like living for themselves, living for the things that they find that compels them to do something. Like I love this, I'm gonna go see that through. And like you can have backup options when you're doing that. You can like set yourself up, but if you know the way that you're going and you actually want to get there, rather than having something else, you know, planted in your head by like, you know, get this job, you know, by parents, by schools, by university, wherever you go, and then that traditional route where you chase that job because it was planted in you from someone else. You just go just because you think when you get that you'll be happy. And you know.
Oh my, so many of my high school friends were like, I'm going to like the local university and I'm gonna be an engineer.
Yeah.
Or like a lot of the girls were like, I'm gonna be a nurse.
Yeah.
And it's like clearly like, dude, like 80% of my friends were like that. And I was like, there's no way all of you actually want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm saying like 15% of you are actually gonna see this through.
Right.
And even the ones that do see it through, I think there's gonna be a quick career change. And I've already got people that like got their engineering degrees. They slaved away for like 6 years to get that degree. They get the job and they're like, this is miserable. Yeah. And you sort of had that as with. Sorry, I don't want to.
No. Dude,
yeah.
Exact same thing. Like I went in, like my dad's an engineer, and like he supported my family and everything. So like great role model example for all of that. I'm like saying that, like, yeah, dude, I want to be an engineer. I want to be just like that, right? And I feel like that's how that gets implanted. And then went through there, realized software engineering isn't my thing. I love programming. Went to programming, loved it. Right, I was good at it, so that plays a role as well. Got an actual job in it, and then it was like, wait a sec, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Because you just didn't like the job.
Yeah, so I was lucky I had that epiphany
right
earlier before I graduated, and I could, switch routes when there's people who don't. And then they're just stuck and they have to either go back to school or just figure it out afterwards, which sounds like you were talking about.
It's funny, man. I have a friend, he is in the exact same boat as you.
Yeah.
Like, comp sci, hates it,
right,
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Same, like, mirrors you, except he's like fallen too deep into it. He's like, I can't stop this now.
Yeah.
So he's like doing like a double major, comp sci and earth and ocean science.
That's cool.
Which it's super cool.
Yeah.
Weird combo.
Very.
Like weird combo. Like might be the only guy in the school right now doing that combo. But yeah, man, I admire you for doing that, for switching routes.
Yeah.
Because like when you told me like, you were like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm fucking off to Argentina for 4 months or whatever. I was like, that's the way to live your life. Just like not worrying about like the judgments of others or like stopping and taking some time. We have this in North American society. We have this obsession with working hard.
Yes.
But a lot of people are working super hard at things that A, they don't like, or that B, don't matter.
Completely.
And it's just getting them nowhere. Yeah. They're just spinning their tires super hard.
Yeah.
And I admire you for like pausing, allowing yourself to take a break, reconsider things, come back and be like, all right, I'm doing this now.
Dude, that means a lot, man.
Yeah.
Actually, I really appreciate that. That's a very genuine compliment.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's how I strive to live all the time.
Completely.
Just constantly tinkering. That's another little thing that I have. It's like whenever, sometimes I get in these like these routines that I think are positive, and I do them for a little bit too long, and I realize I'm in a rut.
Right. So when you say routines, like what do you, like what's an example of like, if you don't mind sharing like a rut that you...
sorry, a regret, is that what you said?
Or like a rut that you kind of like fall into, like one of those like routine type of things.
So with like, I found a lot of joy in working out. I found that like, I obviously get that like natural endorphin boost.
Yeah, of course.
It's great. It can be addictive.
For sure. And
have you ever heard of the hedonic treadmill?
Oh, like I've heard of like hedonism, and I think maybe I have an idea, but why don't you explain?
Yeah. I might be misusing this, I'll describe the phenomenon, and it's a documented phenomenon.
Okay.
Essentially, what it is people will find good things in their lives. They'll become productive, right? And they'll find this nice sweet spot where they're doing like, let's say like, you're a dude, you're like 18, you've never really gone to the gym before.
Right.
I'm gonna start hitting the gym. Yeah. And you're like, I'm just gonna commit to 3 days a week. And you start going 3 days a week. And you're doing that for 2 months.
Yeah.
And then you're like, dude, those guys, you see them, first years.
Of course.
They're in the gym and they're having the best time. You know what I mean? Like they're leaving, they're like, see ya.
Pumped up, man.
They're all...
Yeah.
Dude, but then you see those second year dudes who are still doing that 3 day a week routine and they're not as happy anymore.
Okay.
So what people often do is then they'll add to it. So now they're doing 4 days. Then they do 5 days. Then they're doing 6 days. And within, anywhere from, some people do it in 6 months, some people do it in 5 years. Right. You get these dudes who are working out twice a day. Yeah. And they're miserable. And their lives are based around the gym.
Right.
Because they're no longer getting that, like...
that feeling that they got in the first year, the first couple of months.
Because it's now just normal. It's just accepted. It's just like, oh, okay, like, now I'm going to the gym again. That's what I do, right? I should probably be going more, like, this guy over here, my friend, he goes, more than I do. He's doing better than me.
Yes.
Instead of just being like comparing yourself to yourself.
Completely. Because I think you ingrain that type of identity, right? It's like, I'm someone who trains twice a day, but then my buddy is someone who trains 4 times a day. He kind of looks better than I do. If I was someone who trained 4 times a day, maybe I'll look like that.
100%. There's a lot of different dynamics that go into
completely.
it. Yeah.
And you can factor in like body dysmorphia, which I guess exactly what I said. Things like that. Like I fell through that too. Even like last year when I was training, I just, you get into the hedonic trip. I've never heard that. That's a great term.
It explains so much. Sometimes I like discover things in my life and I'm like, why am I miserable now?
Right.
I used to be happy and I'm doing the exact same thing as I was 3 months ago, but now I'm miserable.
Right.
Why is that? And then someone, I don't know where I saw it. I don't know where I saw it.
Yeah.
But I had the term coined to me, and the fact that it was like a discussed phenomenon legitimized so much my experience.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, well, with that knowledge, knowing that things just become normal, I'm gonna constantly be changing my life up.
Yeah.
At least that's my short-term plan. I don't know if I'm gonna be a 60-year-old man doing that, but while I'm a young man, I just like to try different things out.
Yeah.
No,
completely. It has a little bit of a little sporadic thing. I loved where we got to, and then just to add to the sporadicism, have you ever heard of this? Obviously you've heard of ADHD before, and you can see how that's been kind of like the ADHD diagnosis has been kind of increasing over time. Have you ever heard of the term hunter versus farmer hypothesis?
I have a very, very rudimentary knowledge of what you're talking about.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been obsessed with that. I found it on Twitter, and it's based off of this guy who wrote this book, the ADHD hypothesis. I might be paraphrasing what the title is, but it's this whole idea that over time, the ADHD symptoms kind of, I don't know what the exact word is. I'm a neurobot. I should know. But the genes.
I'm in psychology and I'm in class and I'm I have no idea what's going on right now.
But they basically they got transferred and inherited by every generation for that need, right? The ADHD is very spontaneous. It's a very hunter type of gene where you're sporadically, you need new stimulus all the time. That idea of being so aware with your surroundings, like ADHD people, you're writing a test and you can't stop fixating over the guy who's breathing behind you, and then the door is moving and your pencil is rattling and things like that. That's grown from the sense of being in the wilderness and you're hunting and you hear a branch snapping behind you and you have to be ready for that. And what I love mentioning about this hypothesis, because it kind of sounds like you're the same way, is that this guy in the book coined people with these traits who may have not developed ADHD but have these genes and these alleles. An example is the DRD74 allele, which basically means when you travel to a new place, you feel the sense of new wonderment and you want to work harder. That some people have, some people don't. And I definitely have that.
I definitely have that too.
Yeah.
I find that, because I move around a lot.
Yeah.
And I move around from culture to culture.
Right.
And I find whenever I'm in a new culture, this is maybe I'm pathologizing myself here.
Yeah.
But I find I'm in this flight or fight mode.
Yes.
I'm okay, what is this weird new place? I'm always exhausted because there's all this weird new stimulus.
Right. It's exciting.
It's so exciting, and then eventually you just get used to it, and then the depression, not depression, but the sort of the day-to-day worries start to come back. And I'm I was worried about, I don't know, just surviving,
Right.
and now I'm worried about what the cashier thinks about my hair today.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what this whole hypothesis states. People this, just they always need new stimulus. They get bored really quick, and that kind of sounded like where you were going with, you get into that rut of, because some people who have this the farmer set where you're doing traditional routines for, sunrise to sunset, farming, sowing seeds, what do you call this when you're reaping the seeds? I forget. When you're harvesting, you're doing that all day. It's the same thing, monotonous, same day, and people love that, right? They can get into it, but people who have this type of hunter type mindset, they just constantly need to do something different.
You're totally right. I have friends that are what you describe as the farmers.
Yeah.
And I'm always I don't know how you do this. I have a friend that, my buddy Wade, he's awesome dude.
Okay.
But dude just loves coding.
Okay.
And will literally he'll work for 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
Remotely coding.
Right.
Then he'll get off and he'll do you ever heard of Hack the Box?
No.
It's like fake hacking. It's not even, he just
okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I'm
of
like,
course.
this is like incredible.
Yeah.
You know, like he's devoted his life to this. This is a skill that he's loved, and he just found that he loves this, and he's just like, well, I like it, so I'm not going to stop.
Right.
You know, whereas I'm always like questioning it. I'm always like, I don't know, man. Like, you know, should I go down this road?
Right.
Because I'm always worried that like I'm gonna be like 10 years down some road, and then it's some weird dead end, and I'm like, dude, I've just committed 10 years of my life to this.
Exactly.
You know, and you see that all the time. Like, recently, are you a UFC guy at all?
A little bit.
Okay.
I'll watch the highlights, but I don't know the fights. Yeah.
There's a recent event happened with basically this crazy underdog.
Okay.
Just beat Israel Adesanya, who's considered the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Or one of the greatest of all time.
Of course.
And he was beaten by this dude that was like ranked 4th. No one gave him a chance.
Wow. Okay.
And now obviously this guy's got more of a platform. Sean Strickland is his name, and he's like, he says to people, he's like when people come up to me now and they're like, how do I become like you, Sean? Like, how do I like go and become an MMA fighter? You know, like, I love it, I'm good at it, what do I do? He says, don't do it. He says, whatever you do, don't do this.
Right.
Because it's just such like the chances of you having this like dead end where you've like devoted 10 years of your life.
Yes.
Then you get to the UFC or you fight for some sort of organization and you just get on like a little bit of a slide. Something happens. You know, like, you get a little injured before your fights, or like get a little cold or something, right? And then now the organization's like, you're not giving us the numbers, man. Yeah. You're gone.
Boom. And that's what do you do after that?
And it's like, dude, I just devoted a decade to this. Yeah. And I don't want that to be me, because that sounds nightmarish.
No, of course.
You know.
Of course.
So I'm that's why I'm so careful about
what you're doing,
what I'm committing to, but it's a flaw. Because I'm not committing to anything hard enough.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And like, obviously that's like an extreme example too. Like, there's people, and like, it sounds like, it might even sound like we're kind of shitting on like the whole, no dude, that's awesome, man. Dude, people, like, that's how the world was built, right? Someone dedicating their life to like this thing, like, I love this, I'm gonna do this, I feel great waking up and doing this again over and over again. It's like amazing, man. That's how we have houses, that's how we have buildings, that's how, you know, computers, everything is built today. 100%. But then there's just some people, like, you know, it sounds like you and I, it's just always has to be something new. And I feel like you can see that in the flaw, in the sense that it kind of sounds like you're procrastinating and you're pushing things away and you don't actually know what you want to do, so you pursue a bunch of different things. Or you can see that as like a skill or like a benefit, a pro, like pros and cons, where it's like, you know, I love this many things, my brain is sporadic, going 110% all the time, but I fucking love this because I'm just trying to learn as much as possible. So going back to when you asked me about skills, we did a little like
dude, all my conversations are like this. I don't know what it is about me. Every conversation I have with anyone, people are like, this is like such a,
I love it, man.
Yeah, okay, cool. I'm sorry if I completely, like, if your audience is not going to be able to
understand this is how I talk to you.
Cool.
So no, it's amazing. It's more fun this way.
Sweet.
But yeah, going back to skills, that's how I do everything. It's like, it's just, you know, I want to do, you know, triathlons, I want to run Ironmans. That's amazing. But if I devote my life just to this, and everything else will start sliding. So I also want to do business. So let me start doing both of these. But I'm not going to do both half-assed. I'm going to do both at 100%. And I'm in school too, so I need to start doing school as well. So everything is just firing full cylinders, and that's just.
Do you ever burn out?
Of course.
Dude, that's my problem.
Of course.
Because I used to, like, when you describe yourself as like a kid that liked video games.
Yeah.
See, I like video games, but I never tried to be a competitive video game player.
Okay.
I was just like a dude who just booted up the Xbox, you know?
Right.
And then I realized, like, I'm not doing shit with my life.
Yeah.
And now I've gone, I feel like too far on the other side, or I did at least for a time, where I was just going, I was like, okay, I want to do this. 100%. I want to do this as well, 100%. And then I was like dealing with injuries. I'm like sick a lot more. Like, my immune system isn't functioning as well. Yeah. And other things as well. I mean, with the immune system thing with sports, I found that, like, I suppressed my immune system by, like, just, like, I wouldn't sleep enough. Of course. You know, like, I remember, and I was, like, trying to socialize. Like, I was trying to have, like, I was like, well, what's life if I'm not socializing?
Right.
You know? So I socialize with people, which sometimes involve drinking. Yeah. And then it's, like, the next day I'm hungover, and I'm like, well, too bad, dude. You got, you know, Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu at 8:30.
Yes.
You know? and then I'm like constantly sick, and then with the sickness, and I'm missing stuff, and then I'm just naturally not doing things as well. Even if I go, you're the dude at jiu-jitsu with like the snotty nose. Everyone's like, all right, dude, like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, like, we don't even want to touch you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we don't want to get sick, bro. Yeah. So it's like, who wants to roll with this guy, bro? It's like...
Nobody.
Yeah.
No,
I get what you're saying completely.
Yeah. And but that would, like, it sort of naturally made me have to find a nice middle ground.
Right. So where do you find the middle ground is now? Like, do you... Like, confused on how that... Like, where do you...
I don't
you
have
said
the
you
answers
found this
for
middle
you.
ground. Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I think it kind of goes back to the tinkering.
Yeah,
I used to be obsessed with going to the gym.
Right.
I was like literally I would just gym 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Right? And it would be like an hour and a half, 2 hours in there.
Right.
But then I'd leave the gym after 2 hours some days. I was just like, I'd just be like, okay, time to go home now and get the protein shake going.
Right.
And then I stopped going to the gym for like, dude, I didn't go to the gym, like seriously go to the gym.
Okay.
For like, since like September. It's been like, what, 2 months?
Yeah.
You know, and then I went back yesterday.
Right.
And I just got like an hour and 15-minute workout in. It was great.
Okay.
Finished, and I was like, this was good again. It's like refreshed.
Right.
You know, so it's always just sort of like, I don't know how to describe it, like the ebbs and flows.
Ebbs and flows, yeah.
So you know what I mean? Like, not instead of going 100% with everything, just put a bookmark in one thing. Go like, okay, I'm gonna try this other stuff out. With the sacrifice of this.
Of course.
I'm gonna acknowledge that maybe my brain is gonna give me like some stress hormones because I'm not following that routine.
Right.
But I'm gonna stick to it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure that I don't commit too hard to that. Put a bookmark in it, focus on the other stuff.
Right.
And eventually that other stuff will get old and stale.
Yes.
And then I put a bookmark in that and I go back to that.
Yeah.
Or I find a new thing. You know? That's how I'm only 25, man.
Dude, we're figuring this out.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's right. That's, I think, what my philosophy is for now.
Yeah.
Tinkering. Just sort of like...
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that also, like, it's easy for you to, you know, like, hop on, grab the mic and, like, say, like, yo, if you do this, that'll be... But that's, like, really hard, man. Like, to devote something, and then, you know, when you go to the gym, and we mentioned identity before, you get attached to that. Like, I'm someone who goes to the gym. I'm someone who has sub 10 body fat. I'm someone who's lean. I'm someone who's muscular, veiny. You have all these type of identifications, gym related, of course, and you can get attached to that. So it's hard to, like, put that bookmark in it and change to something like, you know, I'm someone who does jiu-jitsu now and doesn't hit the gym. That's so hard psychologically wise. So for you to be able to do that, and for you to be able to figure out, like, this is my philosophy for how I want to live right now, and who knows if that might change or when it changes or whatever. That's amazing, man. I love that.
Well, I think that my brain is wrong a lot. Like, it's like I have this, like, conscious brain where like, and my like, there's these things bubbling up from the unconscious, and it reaches my conscious filter, and I think I developed a skill to be like, my brain's talking shit again.
Yes.
Like, I don't like what it's saying right now.
Right.
And so that's how I've learned to ignore impulses.
Yes.
You know, and yeah, I don't know. I think a major thing that affects young people now is that they're not able to ignore those impulses.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that, well, that's a lot of self-awareness. Like, do you meditate at all?
I've dabbled.
You've dabbled?
Yeah, I put a bookmark in that for now.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm at too.
It's like, tough to, like, commit to that, dude.
It's, you know, something like 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. It sounds like such a minuscule amount of time. It's hard. You know, we have our lives, we have our routines, and for, you know, say like, hey, you know, if you meditate 15 minutes a day, your life will be amazing. That's cool.
Yeah.
You've got to go to school now, you know?
Yeah.
So
I also just waste so much time. Dude, I'll be honest with you. I literally will just waste so much time. And I'll tell myself I won't, and then I still do. And I'm like, if I devoted, like, 20% of the time that I devote to just, like, frivolous bullshit to, like, one cool thing a day.
Dude,
you know?
Be something spectacular.
Yeah. Like, and I'm trying to do, like, the Spanish thing. So I'm like, okay, instead of doing, like, 2 hours of bullshit, we're doing an hour and 45 minutes of bullshit and, like, 15 minutes of Spanish. You can do this, Alex.
Right.
You know what I mean? I committed to that for a while. You know, I've started sliding already. But I committed to that for a while. And, dude, like, in my Spanish class, I went from, like, a dude who was, like, petrified to be called on. And I eventually went to becoming a guy who's, like, you know, those, like, nerds who are always, like, putting up their hand and being like, oh, like, please.
I love that.
It was a very quick switch. And I was like, oh, shit, like, that just that little tiny bit of effort made such a monumental difference.
Right.
You know,
over time that just keeps incrementing.
100%. Those little increments.
Yeah. I mean, it's just all discipline, right? Like, and that's what really stops you from like doing that when you start to slide. It's like, you know, being able to have that awareness of like your subconscious mind is like, yeah, it would be so much nicer to just chill right now and like do, you know, X frivolous bullshit. And be able to like realize that like, okay, that's not what I consciously want. That's just what my subconscious, you know, very old brain.
Like the lizard brain.
The lizard brain is like, dude, just wants to chill, just wants to relax, have sex, eat food, that's it. So being able to like realize that.
Eat bad food too.
Eat bad food.
Yeah, like bad food that is like instantaneous.
Yeah.
You know, like greasy chicken. Egg McMuffins. Just like, you know, if I listen to my lizard brain, dude, I'd like be an Egg McMuffin if you are what you eat, you know.
I would be an Egg McMuffin. Dude, I love that, man. But yeah, do you look into nutrition at all, or you?
100%.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because love nutrition. I'm actually been contemplating going like the RD route, like registered dietitian.
Whoa. I thought about doing that too.
Yeah. Oh, that's sick. Yeah. Just to have like, I don't even want the job because it doesn't pay that well, to be honest. But the name, like the letters behind the name, I love that. Jordan Siemens, RDN. You know, little oomph to when I'm like making a video or something. But we talked about kind of like, you know, burnout and like everything. I found that I've been so locked nutritional wise the last like 2 months, like everything from just avoiding so much processed shit, getting, you know, beef from the local butcher, fish from like a fishmonger, making sure everything's grass fed, pasture raised, free run, vegetables from, you know, higher upscaled grocery stores, so I know it's like pesticide free. And I found that getting like all those nutrients that I'm normally missing from eating bad diets has just upped my work capacity. Wow. Tenfold. And
is there anything you're like is there anything specific you're avoiding? Like, are you avoiding like red meats or anything like that?
Oh, I just dive into it, but no, lots of red meats.
Okay.
Like I love the idea of like the like ancestral eating in the sense like people take that, and there's guys like Liver King who like just eat liver in a sense, but it's like understanding liver has so many nutrients that we miss in our day-to-day lives. And I was trying to figure out where I got to this point when we were talking, but we talked about how the lizard brain wanted to eat all this like greasy shit, and it's how like industrialization over the last 100 years completely changed how we eat like all these amazing foods, like sugar, which came from raw honey, you know, carbs, which came from like fresh artisan baked breads that were like the wheat was like milled, and everything had so much like care and love to it. And now they just hacked our dopamine receptors and our things with salt, with sugar, with all these.
They're billion-dollar industries. Yeah. They know what they're doing. Dude.
Exactly.
They know what they're doing. It's fucked up. It's absurd.
So you have this like natural craving to like want these amazing things, and it's like, yeah, you know, I want some sugar instead of like a little bit of honey on some like sourdough toast. It's like, yo, I want fucking like these gummies from the dollar store.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's weird. My dad.
Okay.
And I have been speaking, and he talks about this phenomenon. I don't know what it's called. I don't think it's even a term. Okay. I think he thinks about dude. Whenever I talk to my dad, like I used to be like, all right, whatever, dad. And then like I didn't talk to him for 4 years because of COVID, and he moved overseas.
Yes. Okay.
And then so I went and saw. Yeah, he moved to Qatar.
Okay.
Which they don't have the same rights that we do.
Right.
If the king or the emir says, okay, no one leaves, no one enters. No one leaves, no one enters. Right. There's none of this sort of like democratic, like, well, what if?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
So he was like, I'm not leaving. Like, I can't leave.
Right.
So I basically like, and it's like a 10-hour time difference. So we didn't speak.
Wow. Okay.
And then so I went over last year. Actually, it would have been this time last year.
Yeah.
And I started speaking to him again. I was like, man, like my dad's actually kind of like, he's got some good shit. And he talked about this phenomenon with capitalism, where with capitalism, it starts out like any new industry is generally beneficial to
a certain point,
to society.
Yeah.
Until a certain point. Right. And then it reaches this apex, and then it starts to become destructive.
Right.
You know, like you're talking about like food, like processing and stuff like that. Dude, when food processing started, like agriculture started, I mean, we can go way back. Like we can talk about like the first agricultural societies, which is, I mean, like I'm going to start there for a second.
Actually do, because I'm curious.
Yeah.
No, please.
So they started with like agriculture, like the Sumerians, like those, if you know about the Fertile Crescent.
No, I don't.
So it would have been the four original, oh man, now I feel under pressure. The four original civilizations, I believe, besides a few other isolated ones like the Indus Valley civilization in India.
Okay.
But there's like the Assyrians, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the Sumerians.
Okay.
And all of them were like the first large-scale agricultural societies.
Right, okay.
And obviously, some dude, it's groups of people. Sorry, I don't mean to be like, you know.
Or woman.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Or do that.
Yeah, right. Groups of people got together and were like, okay, well, instead of us investing entire days to berry picking and foraging out in the middle of nowhere, let's just keep it all here. We know how this works now. We're going to do, you know, we can localize it here.
Yeah.
We don't have to go very far. We can get we can water it ourselves. You know what I mean? And it caused population explosions. It caused industrialization on a mass scale, because at one point societies had to rely on, okay, like, you know, the men generally were the hunters, the women were the gatherers, and if you were a woman you were a gatherer, and if you were a man you were a hunter. And then it once you got agricultural societies, or, you know, agriculture became like a staple within those societies, you basically had, you know, 10% of the society that was now the food producing people, and everybody else, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to go and they're going to be builders. They're going to be, you know, like eventually like plumbers. You know what I mean? They're going to be artists. You know, now we have pottery from this time. Right. And so it's clear at that point, like, agriculture was this massive, beautiful, beneficial force that stabilized and fostered society. And in the beginning, it was literally just plant the seed, grow the seed, and some years nothing would happen, everyone dies, right? And you were just praying, hey, I don't want that to happen. But now we have, like, we make sure that's not going to happen. We all know that maybe the price of bread's going to go up. But there's always going to be bread. But it's done with this extreme precision now, and it's like Monsanto. It's like GMO. It's all like processed. It's all genetically modified to make sure to guarantee that it's happening. And then, like, you've even got like boots on the ground, like farmers, like the actual people doing the farming who are complaining about it. They're like, dude, like, I've been a generational farmer for like 7 generations. Like my great grandfather was like one of the original settlers of this land. And the way this industrialization has taken over, it's untenable. Like, I can no longer be a farmer. And then so Monsanto comes in and buys their farms. And now you just have essentially, it's not a monopoly, but it's like an oligopoly where you have like 3 companies that own like 80% of land. And it's like, so what was eventually, like, originally, agriculture being like this amazing force in society, is now this like almost like perverse force where you're like, oh god, like, what the fuck is going on there now? Because it's so hyper refined and so like hyper efficient. And that applies to other things as well.
Everything.
You
can look at, dude, man, if you look at the conglomerates in the world, everything is owned by the same people. Right? You look at the Coca-Cola Foundation. Oh, that's cool. You find out they own like every other drink beverage that you look at in the grocery
Nestle's
store.
another one.
Nestle, exactly.
Dude,
like,
it's brutal.
The whole Twitter health community loves like Mountain Valley spring water because high mineral content. It's fresh from the glacier. Nestle just bought them like a couple of weeks ago.
Because they have the money to.
You know, exactly.
Like, if you're almost $1 trillion company or multi-billion-dollar company,
trillion might as well say. Never know.
Then you look at, you know, there's a company there that's worth $1 billion, but you project it to grow to $10 billion by the end of 5 years. Dude, Nestle's going to buy that
easily.
They're already there. They're, you know. It's and then, man, another really weird one. This is going a little bit off topic, but a horrific one in my opinion. One that's like very scary is the military-industrial complex.
Okay, I've never heard anything about this.
So basically, you have things like Lockheed Martin. Do you know about this stuff?
I don't know.
Okay, like Lockheed Martin, Grumman is another one. They're like producers of arms, of like missiles, airplanes. You know, like Canada has just recently green-lighted the purchase of like 100 F-35s, and it's like hundreds of billions of dollars. It's like because no one really knows, right? Like, we're on our day-to-day existence. I mean, we live in Canada, so, but we're not seeing fighter jets fly. So like, it's out of our minds. But underneath, man, there's all sorts of weird nonsense going on. And it's like, listen, I don't want to seem like conspiracy theorist here, but I'm just gonna go on a limb and say this.
Okay.
Like, whenever I look at like wars that spring up around the world, you know, and we have some happening right now, some big ones, right? Every single time, the stocks of all of those arms producers just skyrockets, and they make billions.
Yes.
And like, there's people over at Lockheed Martin, you know, and they're like wringing their hands every time there's some sort of new little armed conflict going up. They know that if there's someone with money involved in that conflict, they're just seeing dollar signs.
You can just go down like conspiracy theorists or not, right? And I'm gonna stop the topic just so it doesn't like go too far.
Yeah.
You can like look into like the old wars and look who funded them. Oh, dude. Right. It's like all of a sudden you have this war going on in the middle of Europe. It's being funded by North America. Or it's being funded by.
Which I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't do. I'm not like if you look at it from like what is like the widely known news. I'm not supporting. I'm not.
Oh, completely.
You know.
Yeah.
It's just a weird. It's like a weird thing to think about.
It's just the understanding that there's like a lower level of stuff that's happening that's not being shown.
It's also just like it's complete war profiteering is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me uneasy that we live in a world where it's like an industry.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You know, or like another one. Sorry, I don't want to hijack your podcast.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Another super weird one is we don't have it in Canada, but in the United States they have privatized prisons.
Okay.
Do you know that the United States has the highest prison population in the entire world?
I didn't know that.
Not even per capita.
Yeah.
They just have the highest prison population, period.
Wow, okay.
And they're not the biggest nation. You know, like you got China, you got India.
Right.
You know? So, I don't know, maybe the United States is like especially violent. I doubt it.
Yeah, right.
It would make sense that because of the privatization of prisons, they found a way to monetize prisoners.
Yeah.
That it's become an industry.
It's horrifying.
It's a little, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that we just kind of like
glance over because it's not our day to day.
Yeah, and it's going on, dude. It's really weird, and like it's going back to the food thing. Yeah. You know, sorry, I'm fucking jumping around on other stuff.
We came back. We got there eventually.
It's weird, dude, and that makes me uneasy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things that were at one point like highly nutritious foods are now no longer.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the best term. It's like the road to hell was paved by good intentions. Right? So it's like just what you were saying, you start off with a small farm. You're like, hey, we can localize everything we're growing here. That's a great intention. Now everyone's getting fed. Hey, we can grow this twice as fast. If we spray this chemical, everyone's getting fed. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, if we surgically implant this with this exact hormone, it has twice the carbohydrate value. Shoot, now this specific disease is being prevented.
Yeah, eradicated.
Yeah, exactly. Now
or we go like splice. Have you heard about they spliced like fish genes into tomatoes or something weird?
No, I haven't, but
yeah.
And then you get to like 5 years and you find out the nutritional value of one of these like surgically grown tomatoes is pure carbohydrates that has a little bit of sugar, and all of its vitamin content, its minerals, zero, desiccated.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why like I've been so like if you really just go into what we need nutritionally, what we need, it's like we're not getting that in the modern diet. And even if you're healthy and you're shopping at Walmart, getting your groceries, getting
your greens.
Yeah, like I feel like we're being taught, and maybe this is conspiracy theory wise or whatever, but essentially like in 1897 there's a cookbook that was released that revolutionized cooking, and it broke down foods into your proteins, your carbohydrates, and your fats and oils. Cool. And there's like, these are what we need to cook food. 1897, around that time.
Wow.
And now we've just evolved that into our meals are just consistent of these three scientific numbers. Our proteins, and they were called proteins in the book. I don't know why. Maybe that's something related. I should probably know that being in bio, but whatever.
Wait, what was it called?
Proteins.
Proteins.
Is it a
oh, okay, weird. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
Interesting. And then carbohydrates and fats and oils.
Okay.
And I think like you take these good intentions of growing these vegetables to up these values in the food, and all of a sudden everything else is going to shit, and we're seeing all these new diseases and everything pop up because now we're missing these values. So just tying it back to nutrition, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. It's I don't even know that's to go back to the whole like committing myself to any one skill.
Yeah.
I'm scared of committing myself to the nutrition thing. I wanted to be a nutritionist at one point.
Right.
I really considered that.
Yeah.
And I decided not to do it because there's just so much different information, conflicting information.
Yes.
It's I find it overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, and I just try my best to eat what I think are good things. That's basically my philosophy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like.
And it's a good way to do it.
I guess.
Like it's. Like there is something to say about going gung ho in one thing. There's extremes of everything, right? And you can take things to the extreme. And some things I find like the best place to be is, I wouldn't say in the middle, just a little bit far past the middle, where you take everything, you get the understanding, you understand everything, but then you don't go to the extreme with it, right? And you understand, you find balance to what you're doing, which just kind of sounds like
that's what I was talking about. That golden mean thing. Did I mention?
Yeah, I was actually I wanted to get into that. You mentioned that. What does that mean? And who was the philosopher?
I think it was Aristotle.
I'm
pretty sure it was Aristotle. And basically what he said is any human trait is on a continuum.
Okay.
Of opposites.
Yeah.
So like an example would be like athleticism. Right. Okay. So on one end you are like devoting your entire life to athletics, and on the other end you are like devoting 0% of your life ever to any like physical exploits.
Right. Okay.
And he said, the ideal man or woman is somewhere in the middle. He says like it's like you're close to that perfect middle ground, like the Goldilocks zone kind of thing.
Zone, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And because he says if you're too much of an athlete, you're sacrificing everything else. Like
yes.
And if you're so you're not like, for example, like engaged with intellectual things. You know, you're not really aware of the world that's going on around you.
Right.
Which allows you to be like taken advantage of in a lot of different ways.
Of course.
You might not be like active in your community, etc. You understand what I'm saying?
Of course, yeah.
And then if you're not athletic at all and you're on that extreme of things, I mean, we all know what happens. You know, it's an unhealthy lifestyle.
It's an unhealthy lifestyle.
You know, you're shortening your lifespan by like a considerable amount.
Right, of course.
And it exists with everything. It's like selfishness.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing nothing but giving, right?
You're gonna take advantage.
Exactly. Eventually, you're gonna have nothing left to give.
Yeah, exactly.
And then if you're just nothing but selfish,
it's egotistical.
It's like good luck having anyone in your life.
Right.
And that has been one reason why I find it hard to commit super hard to anything.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, I'm no longer following that sort of like golden, perfect,
I see what you mean
thing. I'm like investing too hard in this at the sacrifice of everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. When you go through these different routes of like trying so many different things, I just find that you're able to have conversations like this where you can bring up this like random fact of like, you know, like I'm just shooting off the limb here, like war profiteering or something that you were like super interested in for a certain amount of time. Maybe you're so interested, maybe this is what your little schizo rabbit hole is right now, right? Or maybe it's something else, but then you're just having conversation. You can bring this in because it's something you did rather than just being, you know, just having one thing to talk about and not being like, so even if it's like you didn't take it to 100%, you have an understanding of everything.
Yeah. And that, sorry, so what I'm hearing you say, I think, is I got cut up in what I wanted to say next.
No,
you inspired something in my brain.
Okay.
What I'm hearing you say is basically, are you saying like it's good to commit super hard so you have more things to talk about with people?
Well, it's good to just commit to different things, right? And like
hard, like super hard to think.
Hard, or wherever you find is where you're comfortable with committing to,
right? And
then being able to put that bookmark in it and stop it.
And consider yourself like somewhat knowledgeable on some degree.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I fully agree with you. It's just like we had this conversation where like I love history.
Yeah.
I really genuinely believe that I'm like a student of history.
Okay.
You know, like I will spend time out of my own day, out of my own volition, with an encyclopedia or
Dude, I love that.
Yeah, or like on Wikipedia, just going through like a link rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
About weird stuff. And I've discovered all sorts of super cool things about that.
Yeah.
But like I'm in this history class right now, dude, and I'm like, I'm doing pretty mediocre. And there's people in this class that are like, I would literally consider them historians.
Yes.
Like I remember in the beginning of the class, this guy called himself a historian, and I was like, what a dork, right? And then I was like, as the class went on, I was like, no, this guy is actually a historian.
Right.
Like, this guy lives and breathes history and political science.
Right.
That's what he does all the time.
Yeah.
But I could never be that. I would never want to go to that extent.
I was just about to say, like, do you want to be like that person, right?
I don't, because the problem is, man, is you can always refine it more and more and more. Like, there's people out there who are historians about, like, one tiny thing.
Yeah, right.
You know, they're like Iron Age historians of Romania.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, they are like 100% involved in this one tiny geographic area between the times of, like, you know, I'm making this up. I don't actually know when the Iron Age started. But, like, you know, like 4,000 BC to 2000 BC.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else, like modern day Romania, they don't know anything about the politics. They probably would know, like, rudimentary amounts, but, like, they're not, like, highly knowledgeable.
For sure.
And then I'm like, that scares me.
Yeah, and dude, that's, like, then again, you need people like that, right? That's where you can find all these weird discoveries through that different time range. That's probably why they're so obsessed with it, is because they keep finding stuff, and obviously I can't speak to what they're thinking, what they're feeling when they're researching, but there's obviously something that compels them from doing it. But there's something I wanted to say there. Shoot, it'll come back to me.
It's all good. I was gonna say, it also depends on what advice you take for your life.
Yes.
Like, I've always sort of listened to be balanced.
Right.
Find the golden mean.
Yeah.
Seek out the Goldilocks zone. Just it's the same iteration, you know, or different iterations of the same lesson.
Yeah, yeah.
But then there's other people who follow the lesson. Like, I've heard people say, find something you love and let it kill you.
Yeah.
Which I don't subscribe to at all.
Right.
But I can totally understand why someone would. If you find something you really, really love, no matter what it is, and you just commit to it, I guarantee there's all sorts of just, like, there's tons of gratification out of that.
Oh, 100%.
You know?
100%. I think, and my whole belief is, like, going back to that hunter versus farmer thing, is that we're all, you know, just biologically different, right? We all have different wants. You know, our genes, our alleles are all completely different than the person. You know, we might have the same number of them, but they're completely, you know, dipped and twisted in their own different sense from our ancestry. So this idea that some people might be able to take that advice, like, find that, like, kill you. It's like, dude, okay, I found my thing. I'm gonna ride or die. Like, this is it. But then there's, you know, other guys, or it sounds like you and I, where it's like, man, it can't be like this.
So do you think it's a biological thing? You think it's actually, like, mostly a genetic?
I think to a sense, right? And then you can get into, like, whole nature versus nurture.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm trying to steer the conversation.
Okay. Well, before we get into there, I just wanted to add this one point where it's like, how I feel about that type of stuff is, there's this, like, quote that I love. I don't know if I heard it from, like, a Tate video, so maybe it'll, like, lose respect, or it's, like, from some social media guru guy.
All right.
But it was like, you know, a well-played game of chess, like, is a sign of a gentleman. An expertly played game of chess is a sign of a dork.
Whoa.
Right?
Whoa, yeah.
So it's like, dude, that's that seems like a funny quote to say, like, whoa to, but it's like,
no,
it makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
I hope I'm not saying whoa to some degenerate quote, but yeah, that sounds good.
17-year-old trying to, like, affiliate market and just drop some, like, sauce in some video. But yeah, no, exactly. It's like, if you devote your life to this, and, you know, it's like, yeah, that's really cool in this one fundamental area of life, but then everything else goes so unrefined, rather than if you went down it and you understand it and you play it and you're able to contribute to it to a general amount that's not amazing as, you know, the other person might be able to, but you're able to hold your own.
Yes.
It's just a sign of, like, just a well-balanced person who's in that golden mean, which is what I personally subjectively strive to be in.
Me too.
Yeah, someone else could take that and be like, but I want to be the grandmaster in chess, and if that's them, that's so cool, man. Yeah.
I was gonna, because you said you have the student mindset. Did you say that earlier?
Yeah.
I like to have that as well. I whenever I have a conversation with anybody, and we're talking about something, and you describe the whole, like, hold your own thing. I'm always, like, 95% of the time, I'm like, I can recognize when someone is better than me, and I generally just try to just take the mindset where I'm like, there's no ego here. I literally just want to hear what you have to say, and maybe I'll understand it, and maybe not, and if I don't, then I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, I love that. And you can kind of tell it by the questions you ask too. Like, when you know, you hear me say something, it's like, oh, I heard you use this one word. What did you mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great sign of exactly what you're talking about, because that just shows like you're very interested, you're present, you're hearing the conversation, you're curious, right? So
I also just have a certain amount of self-belief. Like I'm just like, you know what? Like I don't have. I've let go of the insecurity of not knowing about something, or like not being good at something, because like there's nobody and this is gonna sound so trite, but there's nobody in the world who is good at everything. You get those few like savants that like somehow, you know, they're like 8 years old and they're already doing like, you know,
grandmasters at chess.
Yeah, or
like
what?
That.
Yeah, you know, you hear stories about is it Beethoven who wrote his first symphony at like 5 or something?
Yeah,
it's like, dude, like I was walking at 5. That was like my grand achievement.
Yeah.
So you get those exceptions, but most of the time people aren't. They cannot be, and even those savants, even those people who are like really good at like one thing, they're often like really lacking in others.
Right.
And so it's not an indictment on me if I don't know something. I'm just like, whatever. Like, okay, I'd love to know more about this thing that you, and maybe it'll interest me, or maybe I'll glaze over halfway through. I'm like, all right, that's not for me.
Right, of course.
You know, but I'm respectful either way. I'm not like piecing out mid sentence. But like I just that's the mindset I love to have.
Yeah.
And as soon as I took ego out of it, again, it's another thing that just improved my life so much. I just genuinely just wanted to hear what people had to say.
Yeah. Right, you're realizing that I think when the ego is really active, it comes from that mindset that this person's speaking, that like they're speaking about this like they know more than me. You're trying to combat that. And I think once you remove the ego, I remember when I heard ego for the first time, I was like, dude, what is that? Like I associate ego with all these like, you know, symbols, right? Like a macho and all that stuff, but like this fundamental idea that this ego that we have that makes us who we are, once you're able to just turn that down in conversation, realize like, hey, you know, like I'm just me, like I'm very happy with who I am. This person is just him, but he knows a little bit more than I do about this one topic, and that doesn't make him better or worse. That just makes him super interesting at this point in time. I just want to learn as much as possible from that person.
I will admit, one thing I do is sometimes if a niche conversation comes up and someone's talking to me about something that's like kind of like a niche conversation, you know what I mean by that?
Okay.
Sometimes I'll listen and then I'll just like hit them with a little bit of my knowledge, and they're like, oh shit, this guy knows something about that. So there's a little bit of ego there, but I'm never like, I'm gonna one up this guy. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about like way in the beginning with the Muay Thai or the fighting, where it's like people who are insecure go around acting like they can fight everybody,
of course.
and people who are actually like sure about themselves, who are like, oh, I'm like, I can handle myself, they're often the least combative people around.
Exactly.
You know, so I think really, it sounds super trite, but really the key to building skills, building relationships and everything is just having and fostering a sense of self-belief and like genuine, just sort of like, I genuinely have this within me, and not faking it never.
Just knowing that you are just good, man. Like you're good to be you. I tried to like phrase that in a way that sounds more intellectual. It's just, you're just good how you are, and when you're confident in yourself, you can really just listen to other people. And the big thing, like what you just mentioned, is being able to express some of your own knowledge, because I feel like if you don't have that big self-belief, in that sense, it's hard to like contribute to conversations, because you can have those words that hold you back, where it's like, you know, am I knowledgeable about this? Like, should I even share this? Will I be wrong if I said this? But if you have that self-belief in yourself, you're confident, you can just listen to someone, you can talk back without caring about any other factors other than this conversation at hand. It's amazing.
And just on a personal note, like it's funny, dude, like when I first met you, because we
met like random times.
We met at random sporadic times over the years. And it's kind of weird, because whenever I see you and when I have an interaction with you, I was like, hey, that one went differently than the last one that happened 8 months ago.
Right.
And I'll reflect on it. I realized that the first time I ever met you, I was like insecure. And then now I've like grown. I like to believe that I've grown. And now like you and I, but through that, you know, one part to play, one of the cogs in that, like in the connection that we've developed, has been the fact that I'm just like willing to have a good conversation with you. You know, and I'm not trying to posture. I'm not trying to, you know, pretend I'm like something I'm not.
Right.
Completely. You know.
That's it's an amazing feeling. I'll actually say the same thing. Like, you know, like this has been like a huge journey for me, at least in my life, and it's been the last like 4, 5, 6 months, like really honing in on this, being like confident, being, you know, building this sense of self-security. So I can like say, like when I first met you, a couple times after that, you know, I was insecure, right? I had this like whole more I would say like needy mindset, where it's like I want to say these things because I want this person to like me. Like it's just like this need, reinforce who I am type of thing. Then when you can get rid of that and you're able to be secure, and obviously I'm not at a point of 100%. Maybe you are.
I'm not. Of course I'm not.
Where it's like, yeah, it's like, we're working on it, right?
Yeah.
But then being able to notice it and understand that, like, we're all a little broken. We all have this.
Which is awesome.
That's just how you grow.
Yeah. Like I find that the best people are a little bit broken. That have like suffered.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
I always, and it's weird, like I'll meet people, I'm like, oh, this is a really good dude.
Yeah.
And I'll connect well with them.
Yeah.
And then like 6 months down the line, they're like, oh yeah, dude, like X like brutal thing happened to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how am I finding all these people?
Yeah.
Like how is it everyone in my life are all, maybe it's that just everybody's suffered. Right. Maybe that's what it is.
I was going to mention, like, what do you think, like, because do you think everyone goes through suffering differently? Do you think?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's positive ways of going through suffering and negative ways of going through suffering. Like, it's obvious.
Yeah, of course.
Like if you devote your life or like your like negative emotions and you concentrate it into like working out, something productive, dude, it's
horrible.
Well, you think it's horrible?
Go on and then I'll add on to it. Yeah.
So I think that if you like notice you have this like energy, and it's like, let's say anger, sadness, you can convert that energy into something positive. You can be like, 100%. I'm going to go and I'm going to like work out, or I'm going to like express this in art or poetry or music or something like that.
Right.
And it can manifest in so many different ways. Yeah. And then other people, and I've done stuff like this, where like I used to be a motorcyclist. I used to have a motorcycle.
No way. Okay.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Like never on the track or anything. I just was like an enthusiast, and
never to the 100%.
Yeah,
to the golden mean. Yeah, of course.
Right, I had to call me out like that. But I would do shit where I'd like something bad will happen to me, like that like kind of upset me, and like, dude, I'd go on the highway like 2 a.m, and I'm just like flooring it, and I'm like, so I've converted this negative angst into this. It's manifested in this way that's just like. The best that's going to happen is I'm going to drive home and I'm going to be like, that was kind of fun but really dangerous and I'm going to regret it.
Right.
Worst case scenario, like red paint on a wall somewhere. I don't mean to sound brutal, but
No, I love that. And that's what I was talking about with the gym, is that you can take that in the same way. Like, I guess even with this idea, there's no positive and negative habits, but you can take the gym as the same thing as that motorcycle, where it's like, okay, this tiny little thing upset me. I'm going to go to the gym and go balls to the wall, and that could be a really great thing. And I actually want to get into that a little bit, but that can also be a horrible thing, where it's like you can go to the gym, it's like, I don't look good enough, I'm so unhappy with myself, and eventually like you'll get bigger, you'll get better, and it's a great way you're transferring that energy, converting it into something else. But if you can also hold on to that mindset, and it can become like an unhealthy coping mechanism. I guess it just depends on how you look at it.
100%. It's weird. There's like so many little tiny mindset adjustments that can happen, and if like one of them is kind of off, something that would be a positive thing is now this just like
horrible thing,
detrimental thing that's ruining your life.
Yeah.
And the gym is a great example.
Yeah.
What did you want to get into?
Oh man, where's I going with that?
I think you were saying something about how like if the gym can be negative, like if you go balls to the wall.
Yeah.
It can be negative. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I want to actually want to go into like a little bit of relationships a little bit with you.
Okay.
And like, because I remember when my first like serious-ish relationship ended in high school. My first instinct was to go into video games.
Okay.
Right, and then that was like my unhealthy coping mechanism, was going balls to the wall into this one faucet of life, becoming really good at it, becoming great at it, but then it was an unhealthy. I'm trying to figure out how this tied in, but I'm just rock with it.
Oh no, dude, it totally ties in.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're following this conversation, like anyone could definitely tell how this is it's a bit of a winding channel, but it's definitely involved.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so that was just very, just devoted all my time into that, right? But then when I started to convert that energy into something more positive, which was the gym at that time, that's when I actually started my whole lifting, just getting into it.
You were like 17, 18?
Yeah, 17, 18. It became really, really positive, right? Because you're seeing a lot of growth in yourself. You're seeing a lot of just, you're seeing that negative energy convert into something positive. And this is where I was trying to figure out where this tied in, because I was like, that's a bad thing, but that's a good thing. So yeah,
I completely relate to that.
Yeah.
I'm in an amazing relationship right now.
Right.
So I feel like that's maybe why I'm like not a total psycho right now.
Right.
But dude, for the past like, man, like I want to say like 2020 to 2022.
Yeah.
Like, I was like a little crazy.
This was after the older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
right.
and like, the reason I've mentioned plumbing a few times in this podcast so far is because that's what I converted it into.
Right.
I became a lifting. I became crazy with lifting. I used to be a dude who was like, I knew, I went to the gym, I watched the videos, I developed like a routine.
Right.
But I was going like 50% of what like the total gas in the tank potential was.
Yeah.
And then I pushed like afterwards, dude, it was just like no breaks. Like I was like, after that breakup, I was like up at like 7 a.m, which is like, I mean, for some people that's nothing, but like I was the type of guy who'd like go like
a little bit. Yeah,
dude, I'd go like an hour before the gym closed and like rep out some nonsense, and then I'd head home and be like, I did that, I guess I went to the gym today.
Did you find that was like healthy or unhealthy?
Which
going to the gym, using that as like what you were converting energy into
from the breakup. Such a complicated question.
Because you can look at it from now's perspective, and obviously it was a great thing, right? Because it made you who you are. Now, so that's a very hard question to answer if I look at it. But
I would say that the grief from that breakup enabled me to realize more of my potential.
Right.
I was like, because I was like, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing.
Right.
Because whenever I just chilled, I wasn't chill.
Yeah.
I was just,
the mind was going.
I was just grieving. I was literally, it felt like a death.
Yeah, of course.
You know, of like a close.
Grief, yeah.
It was literally grief.
Right.
And yeah, dude, like that relationship lasted a year.
Right.
And everyone was telling me at the time, they were like, yeah, bro, like it's tough, but like they say what they say is like, you know, half the relationship time is how long it takes to get over the. That's like the rule of thumb.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I'm a year and a half in. Like I'm pushing that like 3 times.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I think COVID
accelerated that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it extended it. Yeah.
No other connection. No. Yeah. Right.
You know, like it was tough to meet people. You know, my social circle shrank.
Yeah.
Which was healthy because I was hanging out with a lot of people pre-COVID that weren't good people.
Weren't benefiting.
Yeah, like they weren't benefiting. Sorry, when I say not good people, that's harsh. But like they might be great people. They weren't beneficial to my life, and I found that they were sort of like, they like led to certain destructive tendencies that weren't. They supported that, and then I maybe take a step back, and I was like, through COVID, I was like, hey, I'm shrinking this down a little.
Of course.
We still good, by the way? Yeah. Okay. And so it was a mixture of like, that was a positive thing, but in relation to the breakup, I was just like, okay, now I have like 4 friends.
Right.
I see them here and there.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just dealing with, I have this rain cloud over my head at all times.
Right.
And so that's when I dropped out of university and became a plumber.
Right.
You know, which was the weirdest thing. I still sometimes I look back at that, I'm like, I don't know how, like, the only thing that could have caused that was that grief.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is super convoluted, but
that's okay.
Yeah, but you were asking like, how did this, like, would you say that the energy from that benefited you?
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
But it's complicated.
Right.
But I am glad that it happened.
Yeah.
But if you were to say, would you like to do it again? No shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, I mentioned that once for working at Carsa, but like, you know, the best thing that could have happened was the thing that happened, because that's the only way that it could have happened.
I remember you saying this. I remember that was weird for me to hear.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to explain that to me again.
Yeah, well, it's just like, it's the same way, you know, we can frame things as good or bad, which is happening at the time, right? But eventually, like, there's no good or bad, that's just how we frame it. So when you add time into that, when you look back at a year, it's just the best thing that could happen to you, seeing that you grow, because that puts you to where you are today, and wishing that would have happened in any other sense, in any other way, in any other direction. If you could go back and change that, and you came back now, you wouldn't be the person who you are right now. If you could go back and change, maybe you don't break up with that relationship, you wouldn't be the Alex that, maybe you would never figure out how to deal with your insecurity. Maybe you never would have met Olivia. You wouldn't be. So the best thing that could have happened was that for you, because that put you where you are now.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know, man. This is gonna sound super corny, but really, like, it was like. This also ties into how, when you're talking about like how coping with struggles can either be a positive thing or a negative thing.
Right.
I find that, maybe this is gonna sound harsh. I hope it doesn't, but I liken harsh external realities, like a breakup, like COVID, like any struggle that anyone can go through that's really none of their fault, as kind of like oh man, what is it that like blacksmiths use?
Anvils?
Yeah, like, how do they heat up the metal? It's not an oven. I'm gonna sound so dumb here. Forge,
yes.
Yes, thank you. It's like that external circumstance is the forge, and you are the piece of metal going in.
Right.
The piece of metal is either flawed and melts, or it comes out sharper.
Right.
And oh man, sorry, the terminology is lost on me, but it'll come out stronger.
You come out stronger.
Or galvanized. That's the word.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I love that, dude. That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And galvanized is a term that's used to describe metal, but it's also a term that's used to describe people. Like if you're galvanized to do something, and that's where I kind of got this idea from, where I'm like, oh, this external reality is like the forge, and am I gonna let it crush me? Am I gonna crumble under this pressure, or am I gonna like find some sort of silver lining to make myself better?
No, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that, and that's the thing, you can only find that silver lining. I guess you can only look back and see that silver lining afterwards, right? Because at the time, you're in the fire, bro. You're in pain. It hurts. It's horrible.
Sometimes you can see the silver lining in like the vague heat waves, but you can't see the end result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And until you're able to add time to that, and you're able to actually grab onto that silver lining and go down that path, that's when you can start to see that like that was really beneficial for me. Like I know, like it's hard because last year I was in a beautiful relationship with this girl. Still lots of love for her, and that ended in the summer. And like a lot of that stuff spiraled around. I find a lot of growth for a man happens around relationships, breakups specifically, or even just.
I think it's both ways.
Ebbs and flows. Growth in a relationship, growth out of a relationship, and it was just really hard, right? Just lots of love for this person.
Yeah.
And
honestly, man, I've been through that, and my condolences to you that you're going through that, or you went through it. Yeah.
Went through, and it was just, it was a few months of just being down, right? Being months of like, looking up. I'm religious, so looking up to God and just like, wondering what's happening to me. And eventually, after time, now I'm looking back, like 5 months past, I can look back and be really happy that, not that's the wrong word, but just look back grateful that I was able to have that experience and be with this person, and also grateful in the sense that the person I am right now wouldn't have happened if that never happened, if that relationship never ended, if that relationship never even happened in the first place. I wouldn't be who I am, where I'm standing having this conversation with you.
Absolutely.
So it's just super grateful for all suffering that happens, and just you come out the fire, you always come out stronger than you were before you come out.
And I don't know, I mentioned to you before, like the whole blind faith thing, and that, like, through having those experiences and coming out stronger, you then develop a sense of strength,
right? So
then the next time something harsh happens to you, you just know, you're like, okay, after this is done, I'm probably going to be a better person.
Exactly.
And it's just blind faith. It's like you don't know what the silver lining might even be. No. And then like 5 years down the line, you're like, dude, that like horrible nonsense that happened to me 5 years ago, that was like the best thing that actually ever happened to me.
Right.
Like I spent 9 months over at the Walmart when it was coming up, building it.
Right.
Dude, like if I tell people like, yo, dude, I did the plumbing at Walmart, no one's like, whoa, right. That's sick.
It's insane.
But dude, if I like go into the intricacies of what happened and the various stages of that experience for me, dude, life changing. Yeah. Like I would never want to do it again. No. If you said like go and build a new superstore, I'd be like, no, fuck no. I've done that. Yeah. But in so many ways, right, it was beneficial to me.
Because that's what inspired you to go back to school, right?
Yep, it inspired me to go back to school, but it inspired me in so many other ways as well. It inspired me to just have self-belief.
Self-belief, yeah.
Yeah, like I had a coworker. I don't know if this is too much for the podcast. I'll just tell you. Yeah. He had some. Did I tell you about this already?
Yes, you did. Okay, right. You can go into it. A little
bit if you want. Yeah. So he had a history of drug use.
Yes, right.
And he developed a circle of people, like we were talking about, that fostered this use of drugs. Right. And so he got pretty heavily involved in this like illicit use of pretty hard drugs. And so he was living a good portion of his life not sober. Yeah. And he went on a trip. And on that trip, he was in the car with someone who was also under the influence.
Okay, yeah.
And they got into a crash.
Right.
And he sustained like pretty intense brain damage.
Right.
And so he was like, when you first talked to him, you were like, oh, this guy's like, nothing wrong.
Yeah. But after a while, it was.
He eventually started. I was like, he's talking about the same things a lot here. I remember he came up to me one day, and because we started becoming like good friends. He was, I'm not even afraid to say, man, he was my favorite guy on the site.
Okay.
Super positive,
I love that.
Awesome dude. Like literally, like, man, I wish I'd known him for longer.
Yeah.
But just because he was such a cool guy, and I had a lot of good things to say, but he had problems because of his brain damage of forming short-term memory.
Right.
So long-term memory he was fine with. Like, he could remember what happened to him when he was 6 years old, but he couldn't remember what happened to him that morning.
Right.
So he would like come up to you and you would like, sometimes you wouldn't even remember.
Yeah.
He'd be like, good afternoon, Alex. You been here all day?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, he got laid off, or he actually asked to be laid off. Yeah. Okay. And everyone was downsizing. Like we were like the project was kind of in its final stage. Right. Nearing its final stage. So the crew could shrink. Right. And so basically they were saying, if you have stuff to do, we'll lay you off. Wow, and if you want to stay, then don't ask to be laid off, obviously.
Right. Okay.
But if you want to go, we'd appreciate that. And so he said, okay, I'd like to go. He was one of the first guys. And we all thought, this is great. You know, like Stu can go, what's his name?
Yeah.
Stu can go work on himself. You know, he has a good family that is willing to support him. Oh, okay. He's doing really well for himself right now. Like he's no longer in that community. He's no longer using the drugs. He's like doing constructive things. He's he's like on his breaks he goes to playing chess because it has some sort of, it like does, they say that it's good for certain parts of your brain and you know the maintenance of it.
Right.
And I was always like, oh, I'm gonna chill with Stu. You know, like I could actually see myself being Stu's friend.
Yeah. And
then like 3 weeks later, this guy's like, you know, I'm on top of like a scissor lift, so I'm like way up in the building. I'm on like, you know, and I can see kind of what's going on below me. And I could tell that one of the higher up bosses was going around telling everybody something.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, something's changed. You know, like maybe like layouts change. You know, the electricians, they need to do something, and we're doing something wrong, and you know, we're gonna mix it up. Yeah. So I lower my scissor lift. I'm going down. I'm gonna talk to him, and instead of being like the typical like, oh, you know, do this instead. Yeah. He just says like, hey man, do you hear what happened? And I was like, no, like what are you talking about? Yeah. I'm still expecting like, you know, the electricians are pissed.
This works.
Yeah. You know, and he says, yeah, like Stu killed himself. Sorry, man. You know, and I was like, dude. Yeah. And that was another extremely pivotal thing. Yeah. Like in my life, I was just like, it was like just like instantly. I just learned so many things. I was like, if you have someone in your life that is struggling, even if they don't appear like they're struggling, and you just have a feeling like, hey, I think this person's doing not so well. Yeah. And you have some free time, don't waste it. No. Just be like, I'm going to go engage with this person. Yeah. I'm not like, I went through a time where I kind of blamed myself. I was like, oh, maybe if I said something. Yeah.
Right.
You know, maybe if I'd been, hey, Stu, let's go get some wings. And we talked about that. Yeah, I was like, dude, I'd love to go get a beer with you. Yeah. He was like, yeah, man, yeah, for sure. I'll see you around. Yeah. 3 weeks later, he's gone. you know?
Right.
So that was the thing. It also made me realize how precious and precarious life can be.
Yeah.
You know?
Harsh, man. How harsh life can be.
Yeah. I mean, students deserve that.
No.
Dude, awesome dude.
Yeah.
And it also made me realize that I want to surround myself with people that would do the same for me.
Yeah.
So then I went to his funeral,
Mm-hmm.
and not an indictment on the construction community whatsoever, because
Yeah.
I have massive respect for those people.
Right.
But of that people, I want to say, to set the record straight, Stu's funeral was packed. It was everyone was there.
Right.
Like, you know, family members, distant family members, family friends.
Awesome.
It was and it was a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was a celebration of his life.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But no one from the construction site showed up. It was me and one other guy. I mean, obviously there's hundreds of dudes on the site,
Of course.
but there's also our core little group of our trade, the plumbers, you know, the pipe fitters and stuff.
Right.
And there was like 15, 20 of us. Me and another guy showed up, and I knew the guy for 6 months. We're all part of a union. You know, all these guys have known they've all known each other for years.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I was like, life is precious, life is short. There's good things to do besides this, and I want to find people in my life that are really supportive, that are really good people for me, and it's not here.
Right.
And I was in a situation where I was like, I don't want to do this, and it made me question, like, what do I really want to do? What has always been my dream?
Yeah.
Is it realistic? And I was like, yeah, it is real. Like, I want to be a pilot.
Yeah.
Is that realistic? Yeah. I did some research. I was like, dude, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
You know, I'm digging myself into this stream.
Right.
You know, I'm going down this path,
Mm-hmm.
when actually, you know, my golden goose is over there.
Yeah.
And I just don't have the self-belief to follow it. I'm like,
Right.
I don't deserve that. I
Yeah,
don't deserve that, you know?
No, exactly.
But who deserves that? No one
right?
in particular deserves
Yeah.
it, really.
Yeah.
You know?
No one's entitled to it.
Exactly.
At all. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was like, why not me? I could do it.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
it's weird to say, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like Stu's death was another one of those silver linings.
Yeah.
Where I was like without that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I'd be today.
No, exactly.
You know, like, it's such just a learning moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just suffering, man.
Yeah.
Just. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing that you can also speak about it too,
Mm-hmm.
from like that perspective. Like I can tell, I can like hear, and especially see like the empathy in your voice when you're
Mhm.
talking about it. I can tell that it's like a really pivotal thing, but also shows just how much you carry
Mm-hmm.
that situation. Because I'm sure we've been in a situation where you hear someone talk about things like that just for the sake of talking about it, but when you're talking about it, you can really
Mm-hmm.
feel all the underlying emotions that were happening at the time. That was really powerful.
Thank you, man. I appreciate
that.
that. Yeah. No, and I find that it's just I'm happy to talk about those things. I just want to be genuine.
Yeah.
I want to I want to talk to people about what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, and I love to hear, dude. I can honestly do without in my life
Mhm.
the pleasantries. You know, like, how's it going?
100%.
You know, obviously saying how's it going to people is polite. That's awesome,
That's
right?
how
But
you
if-
started a conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
But if your conversations are just like, yeah, dude, sports. Yeah, dude, weather's kind of shit now.
Right.
Getting cold these days.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people out there that just like, I don't know if they're too scared or what it is.
Yeah.
And they're just not engaging. They don't want to engage
Yeah.
on like a level that's like, I think they're just scared.
You're scared, and that's what I was thinking. It's like going back to that insecurity, self-confidence, and things. Is a lot of people I think don't have that belief that's like, I have something real to say. I have something
Mhm.
genuine to say. You know, how I feel matters. So
Mhm.
they just don't share. And it's easy to hide behind the like, hey, how are you doing? Good. You? Good. School?
Mhm.
Good. You? Good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that just really comes from, you know, just, and obviously I could be projecting, right? Because my whole experience with developing this was coming from that sense of insecurity. So that's
Mhm.
why it's hard for me to have real conversations and everything. So that's why this is my take on it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like once you really can build up that belief in yourself to like, you know, that you are valuable, you are a person, and like you can have mantras for that. But once really understanding
Yeah.
that you are equal to everyone, regardless of what your social status and everything is, you have something real to say, you can start talking to people and people will see you the same way.
100%. Another thing I'd add on to that is, I always personally, since we're talking about personal feelings about this, I always used to be scared that people were going to laugh or ridicule the shit that I was saying. Like, oh, I had this experience, you know, Love that number one grandpa thing. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then I realized I was just like, if someone ridicules what I'm about to say, if I say this from the heart, and then someone ridicules it, that's on them. That's not on me. I'm not going to take that personally. Yeah. I mean, well, I would be disappointed.
Of course.
But I'm like, okay, well, that person is maybe having a bad day.
Yeah.
But probably is just someone that like isn't engaging.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? And I don't need that in my life. No, and there's lots of these other people here that are like willing to engage and hear me out and listen to my, you know, intimate details about things, you know, and like you know, my like thoughts, and that's what I want in life. And I almost see it as like a litmus test. Yeah, sometimes I'll like I was in class, dude. The class is called interpersonal relationships. Yeah. And the very first thing that we did, obviously with interpersonal relationships, there was a lot of talking with people.
Of course.
And so the first thing that she did is she was like, the prof said, okay, first thing we want to do, I know you're probably sitting with your friends. I want you to turn and find someone you've never talked to before, like you've never seen before. Right. And I want you to talk to them. I'm going to give you 5 or 6 minutes. Yeah. Go right now.
Right.
And everyone just sort of like turned. We were all sort of like, and I literally, like, this guy turned around. He was like, oh, like, what's up, man? Like, you know, like, what's your degree? And I was like, no, dude, fuck that. I was like, do you want to hear about my insecurities, dude? And he was like, what? Whoa. Yeah, I was like,
dude, I love that.
Yeah. I was like, I had a feeling I knew what the prof was doing. She was going to be like, okay, like, see all the bullshit you're talking about at the end? Yeah. But I was like, I'm going to, like, throw a spoke, like a stick in the spokes here. I'm gonna like, and I just talked, dude. I literally talked about like, I was brand new at school again. I was a little bit older than a lot of people in my classes because I'd taken those 2 years off.
Gap. Yeah, of course.
I also just bought this car that was a total piece of shit, and I put way too much money into it, and I was really ashamed about it. And I was like, dude, it's so loud and so.
What'd you buy?
I luckily this actually had a great ending, but I had a Cobalt LS. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh my God, yeah.
Dude, it's like a. Yeah, super loud, straight piped. I don't know why I did that. Yeah. It was like an impulse buy. Like this, this 18-year-old drove to my house. So I was like, I got in it, and it was just like fun. It like accelerated a lot. I was like, I want this. So I bought it. Okay. I sunk like $5,000 into it, and then I woke up the next day, and I was just like, what have I just done? It's like piece of shit. Like, it doesn't even look nice. Like, it's got like rust spots all over it. Okay. So then I was So then. Anyway, basically, the guy also ripped me off. Like, what did he do? He took my money, gave me the car, but didn't give me the paperwork. So the car was still under his name, and he just, like, wasn't texting me back. And I was like, dude, I can't insure this thing.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know. Like, I had, like, a couple of days of, you know, leeway where I didn't have to insure because I was, like, technically an unlisted driver. Yeah. You know? But I was like, this is sketchy, dude. Right. Some dude from outside the city who's 18 has just sold me this rust bucket sports car. Yeah. And I was like...
Didn't give you the deed.
No.
Right.
And luckily, I actually I was about to get a lawyer involved because I was like, dude, what is this, man? Yeah. So then...
$5,000 in it?
Yeah. He texts me back and he's like, dude, like... Because I said to him, I was like, dude, I just want my money back. Like, you can have the car... I just want my money back. Let's just call this square. Let's just call this off. And he was like, dude, I'm really sorry. I've already bought a truck, you know, but there's this guy that's really eager. So if you're having a second thoughts, sell it on to this guy. Right. And I was like, okay. So he gave me the details. I switched it over under my name.
Yeah. Oh, you got the deed.
I got the deed eventually.
Oh, okay.
I got the deed.
Yeah.
Then this guy calls me. He's like, dude, I love your Cobalt LS. I was like, oh, come check it out, dude.
Yeah.
And then he was like, how much you want for it? I bought it for like, I think $4,800.
Okay. And then you put 5 after it?
No.
Oh.
Just put the $4,800 in. Yeah. No. It was just like 2 days later.
Straight, okay.
Yeah, and then so he was like, this old guy comes to my house, and he's like, I love your car, man. Like, how much do you want for it? I was like, well, I don't know how. Like, I just like got confident, dude. I got cocky. I was like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if I want to sell it. All I wanted to do was sell it.
Yeah.
I made like $800. Just like I just flipped a car. It was sick.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, a huge happy ending.
Yeah. Great happy ending. But in the moment where I was talking to this dude in the class, I was like, dude, I spent like...
Oh, because this was before. Yeah.
I was like, I spent a lot of my money on this piece of shit car that's technically not mine. And I look like a douchebag.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you know what? It's awful. Right. Bad situation all around. I'm really insecure.
Right.
And at the end, the prof was like, what'd you guys talk about? And people were like, favorite colors. What's the degree?
Yeah.
Right? And I put up my hand and I was like, I just talked about my insecurities the whole time. She was like, what? And I was, and it like, I did it for as a
Obviously,
bit, you know,
but
that's what I want in my life.
Yeah.
You know, and that guy who I had the conversation with, dude, we sat next to each other for the rest of that class.
I love that.
We were just semester friends.
Of course.
Yeah, but I see him around. Yeah, I see him around, and there was a connection there.
Yeah.
You know, and that he that's the litmus test that I was talking about.
Yes,
it's like, can you accept me just opening up the floodgates right now?
Yeah.
And if not, then I can find other people that will.
No, completely. And dude, that's just vulnerability, man. Right? Because like,
it's a strength.
Yeah, it's a strength, but you had to be vulnerable, right? You couldn't wait for him to say something, and that comes from being able to have that confidence, that stuff in yourself. Where it's like, okay, if he like looks at me weird, and or not even looks at you, that could be you reading the situation wrong. But if he, just doesn't want to hear this, okay, I don't need him.
It gets awkward, or
it gets
like,
awkward.
Whatever, dude.
Starts changing the subject, changes it, even just like completely overwrites it. Starts talking about himself.
His favorite color.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a cool car, bro. What color was it? Blue, dude. I love the color blue,
sick.
bro. Yeah, but no, exactly, right? You have to be able to like say like, I don't want to talk to that guy. And I think that's
nothing against those people. I'm not angry towards them. I'm just like, there's a lot of fish in the sea.
Tons, bro. And you will find like maybe they just weren't into you. Maybe just the way your hair looked that day reminded you of someone in like grade 6 used to bully them, right? They didn't want to talk to you, right? There's all these little things. But man, dude,
you can't control it though.
You can't.
No.
At all. And dude, I was just gonna say, I feel like I have like, dude, maybe like 4, 5 real friends right now or something. And dude, I'm just happy, man. Like back in high school, back first year university, I have huge friend groups, bro. Meaningless, not meaningless. Everything has some meaning in some sort, but just,
I get you.
Very pleasantry conversations. And
maybe
that's
partying
cool.
together and stuff
Party
like that.
together,
Yeah.
you drank together, you played video games together, that type of thing. But then, man, now that I have like 4 or 5 people, I can like say like, dude, yesterday I was kind of anxious yesterday, man. Like, dude, today I was like, I was a little stressed for absolutely no reason.
100%.
It's powerful, man. That's all you need in your life, especially in a partner. That's all you need. Just a few really tight knitted relationships. I feel like that just satisfies us.
100%. I completely agree. Some people don't operate on that level.
Right.
You and I clearly do.
Yeah.
But I would consider, like, when people say like, oh, I have like 30 or 40 friends, or I have like a huge friend group.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people. Like, we work behind that desk together, and I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but I've had a lot of conversations. And like when I first get to meet a lot of those people, behind the desks, they're often sort of like, yeah, like me and my friends are going to go do this, and I'll know people. I'll sit behind the desk with that person for 6 months, over the semester. And by the end of the semester, they're telling me like, man, like, I don't really have any people I can count on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, then you have no friends.
Yeah.
Like you need, and I'm not saying like, it's good that you've realized this.
Yeah, right.
Go and find some people that you connect with.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to cut them loose.
Right.
If you genuinely believe that you've maxed out your friendship with somebody, and you're just like, would this person show up if I got into a car crash?
Yeah.
If the answer's no, dude, it's not really a friend.
No, exactly.
It's like a drinking buddy.
Drinking buddy, exactly. Like, would this person, is this person really, beneficial for me in my state of life where I'm planning to go? Is this person, and then also on that note, are you benefiting them? Right? Are you?
Totally.
Right. It's completely
two-way street.
Yeah, it's a two-way street.
Were you about to say quid pro quo?
Yeah, is that the right?
Whoa.
Is that the right term?
I don't know. I've heard that before, and I'm like, I want to start implementing that in my vocabulary.
I love that. But yeah, it's that sense, right? Like, these people, are they really benefiting my life right now? And am I able to benefit them? And if the answer is like no, but I'm just hanging around them because like I'm insecure and lonely and I want some external validation in that sense, it's like you'd be so much happier learning how to be lonely, learning how to be on your lonesome without these fake friendships. Because then when you're able to be and when you're able to be confident alone, you're able to find another person who's confident alone, and that's when the real friendships start to grow.
I think that there's a few skills in the world that exist where the less effort you put into them, the better you are.
Completely.
Like, and socializing is one of them. Like, I have gone through periods in my life where socializing was like my reason. It was my purpose.
Right.
And they're often the loneliest, shittiest times of my life.
Yeah.
And there's times where I've been like, okay, this isn't really working for me. I'm pivoting onto something else. And all of a sudden, people are springing out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm developing meaningful relationships because I'm just not trying, and everything's genuine.
Yeah.
I suppose if you can try and be genuine and somehow balance those two things, then you're making tons of friends.
completely.
Yeah.
Completely. But then, like, just to try and, I don't know, because when I hear that, I used to be super, I want to say, like, autistic about that. That's obviously a horrible word for it. But, like, I'd be, like, reading books on, I still actually read books on how to do stuff. But it's, and then trying to, like, implement that without that genuine connection. Like, dating's a big part of that, right? If you ever heard of, like, the red pill community?
Yes.
Yeah, I fell into that rabbit hole, especially after that first breakup for a while. And then all of a sudden you're trying to, like, play these games with people where you're trying to, like, if I say this, will I get this reaction? I got this reaction, write that down in the notebook, check this works. And then you don't develop real communication. And in dating, when that your whole relationship is based off of these fake games that you played at the start, it leads to a terrible relationship in the end.
With that community, have you pulled yourself out of it, or are you still?
I pulled myself. I would say, like, I think at the time, same thing, silver lining, so beneficial. That's what got me into the gym. Yeah. Bunch of guys saying, like, yo, dude, like, women are hypergamous, just lift weights, grow, and then eventually you'll get girls, right? And, like, I needed that at the time. Yeah. But now looking back at that now, and even it still fucks me up mentally, especially in...
I've read some of this stuff.
Yeah, relationship, it's fucked, man. And, like, there's some things,
it's
like...
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy at all. It's a horrible perspective.
I'd rather be lonely.
Yeah.
And, like, myself...
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'll let you finish.
No. Yeah. Okay, but... Yeah. No, just go ahead and I'll jump on after it. That's okay. No.
It's not healthy. It's like, it's not... Yeah, I always find... Because, like, I think, like, Andrew Tate would sort of be an example of what you're talking about. Yeah. Man, like I don't know why. Probably because YouTube knows I'm like an early 20s young man. But dude, it force feeds me this shit. Yeah, dude, I'm like, I don't want to see this. Like, leave me alone. Right. I'll be like watching like dorky science videos and like, history videos like in 1776, right? And then it's like I go to, and then there he is. There's this
man.
Yeah, it's like it's like smoking a cigar. I'm like, dude, okay. But obviously, through like literally just being force fed these videos, you pick up these tidbits, and I'm like, I can totally see why young men get involved with it, because it's this dude who seems to be successful. Yeah, he's walking around sports cars. Yeah. He's surrounded by beautiful women. Yeah, and he's like, you can do this too if you follow my algorithm. Yeah, and I'm like. Yeah, like on a surface level, for a couple of years, this would be nice. Maybe.
Hedonistic, very hedonistic.
Totally. Yeah. I don't think it would actually lead to long-term happiness. Not at all. Genuinely, like Yeah,
no, completely, and that's like, cause I do enjoy some of what he said, cause I'm a big fan of like masculinity in that sense. I think that's like a dying trait that we're seeing in these generations. Yeah. So there were some parts in that where it's like like learn to be stoic, learn to handle your emotions, learn to be strong. And then to add on to these things where it's like relationships is, games, right? It's all these. And I think I had this thought today, and, I'm actually going to share it because it was just like, but, I was just washing dishes in the kitchen, and I thought to me, it's like, dude, this whole time I've been like trying to pursue relationships, and I'm trying to act in a way that I don't get hurt, right? I'm trying to act in a way that's like, if I'm super giving, if I'm like this exact type of person, I won't get cheated on in that type of sense. And I realized like a lot of that is coming from this type of like red pill content, where it's like, if you aren't this one type of ideal person, obviously the high status male that they represent in these communities is a very good person in a sense, like someone who cares about their money, someone who protects, provides, all that stuff. Right.
That's fantastic traits. Dude, that's amazing. If you're a protector and a provider and you're genuine with it, and you're like, I use that word a little bit too much, but if I'm like, if you're like, those are all positive things.
Amazing things. Yeah. But then once you take them to the extremes, and you don't have this like hedonistic life, it's just it's very dark, and I realize that that's still in some part of my brain, just influencing my actions subconsciously, especially
it's in a lot of young men's brains. That's why this guy's so popular.
Exactly. How fast he shot, like that's so many signs of like where we are at society wise right now.
I will agree with you on one thing, and I'll go on a limb here. I'll take a risk here. I think that we're in. Have you ever heard of the concept of the zeitgeist?
Yeah, have you seen the Zeitgeist documentary series? No? Oh, you would love it, but side topic for like after this one.
We'll write that down.
Yeah.
I always take like book recommendations from people that
it's a movie.
It's a movie. Film
documentary.
Yeah, okay. Well, any media, I mean,
government, conspiracies, everything. I think you would actually really love it.
Awesome.
Yeah. But no, go on.
I think we're in a zeitgeist in our society right now, especially here in Victoria.
In the sense that, we describe the term for anyone who hasn't heard zeitgeist before.
How would I find zeitgeist? I suppose a societal-wide mindset towards various things, and like, there's things that are subjective within society, and a zeitgeist will either give those subjective things platforms or not, and they'll, you know, so one thing that we have a zeitgeist that's kind of anti-religious now, right? So like, you know, if you went back, you know, 150 years, the zeitgeist was extremely pro-religious, and it would I hope this doesn't offend you, but like it would take these subjective ideas of religion, and it would go, okay, well, these are good things.
Right.
The society would foster and support these things. Now, I think our zeitgeist is anti-religion, and I think it's also, especially here in Victoria, anti-masculine.
Yes.
And I don't think it's. I think there's things about masculinity that are bad.
Yeah.
Like I talked to my grandfather.
Okay.
There's certain ways that he behaves.
Yeah.
I love my grandfather, but
love it. Yeah.
But I just want to say, like, men of his generation, and when I watch them interact, I'm like, I can imagine these dudes as like 30-year-olds, and there's some stuff going on here that's not good.
Right.
But that's not to say that all masculinity is bad. I think a lot of masculinity, generally speaking, is a very positive force in society. And I think the notion in society that we have right now, where like we're like pushing men down and we're forcing them to not be masculine and to sort of make them more docile. I think it's going to have repercussions, and I think what you were talking about with Andrew Tate.
Yeah, the red pill. Yeah.
It's an example of it.
Right.
It's like you have these young men, they're dealing with these like angsty emotions. Yeah. You know, and dude, young men throughout all of human history have been a kind of a chaotic force.
Very.
And if you're not like at least engaging with these this chaotic demographic, that's a recipe for disaster. Yeah. And you see it throughout all of human history.
Right. I mean, military age males, man. Dude. 18, 25. Like these are the guys that cause serious physical, like they're the physical workforce. Right.
Well, and not only that, but if they're the physical workforce, you're absolutely right. That's them using like that's a large scale form of masculinity that is positive for society and positive for those men individually as well.
100%.
But then there's examples of like if you look at and dude, I hate to be controversial here, but I'm just gonna say it. If you look at any group that could ever be considered a group that is like involved in terrorist activity, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of creed, regardless of anything, it's always done by young men. And it's like, well, you've got a bunch of aimless young men that are trying to find purpose.
Right, and if someone offers them this purpose,
they're going to seize it.
Yeah, and that's also a huge problem right now is that we have this, I think, problem with guys. They don't know who to listen to right now. And you get guys like, you know, Andrew Tate pop up. Do you know Jordan Peterson? Yep. Yeah, I love Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I give and take from Jordan Peterson.
Give and take. Yeah, which you should do with everything, right? And people don't. That's a skill you have to learn how to do. Amazing book, man. I love it. It's called The Warrior, Magician, King, and Lover. Yeah, have you?
Yes,
have you read it?
No, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I've never read the book.
Okay.
But I've discussed it with a therapist before.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that book because it's like, with every male archetype, there's these really great male masculine traits that you mentioned, which is like, you have the warrior, someone who's like strong, can provide, protect. You have the magician, someone who's very wise, understanding. You have the lover, someone who can really communicate, build like a healthy relationship with their partner. And when you start to add these toxic traits to these very great masculine traits that
you mean they're society. Like attributing toxicity to good things.
Attributing toxicity, but I'm talking from like a subjective sense in itself, where a great example of this is the king, right? Right. The king is this very masculine trait in the role, in the sense that it provides, it protects its people, it cares for its people, you know, loves its people, and does anything for its nation that it rules. And once you add things like the ego, you get this thing called the shadow king, is what the book describes it, as someone who's egotistical about it. And, you know, he protects his people to boost his own ego.
Serve his own purpose.
And things with the lover, you have this person who just loves and cares for the other person. You add something like a very obsessive personality into an unhealthy sense. You get an obsessed lover with someone who needs to know where they're at all the time, who's obsessed with what they're doing, and you have these darker masculine traits based off of the self, and that's what makes it unhealthy. And that sounds kind of like what you were talking about. We have these like really great masculine traits, and once you add a little bit of these darker personality traits that we all experience as people, and if we're not aware that we're adding them, they become darker, they become toxic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what's represented as toxic masculinity.
I think it's good to question everything. I think it's good, like anything that is like a widespread phenomenon within society, I think it deserves to be questioned.
Has to be.
Yeah, that's how you keep things in check.
Critical thinking, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That being said, I think that there are certain things, and this is, of course, throughout human history, you can find examples of this.
Yeah.
But like, I think now we're at a stage where there's too much of a microscope on masculinity.
Right.
You know, and I think that people are criticizing it to an extent where it's actually the criticism is causing backlash.
Yes.
And I think I am more concerned just about myself now. I used to be concerned about sort of like these societal things as well, which I still am.
Of course.
But I've taken sort of a step back.
We have so little control.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm not fighting anybody over it. I'm not arguing about things. I'm happy to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And I like to believe that I'm somewhat knowledgeable about it, and I'm like able to have these conversations.
Right.
But man, like, I'm kind of disengaged from it, but I totally still believe.
Which is the best place to be.
Yeah, but I still believe I'm kind of like, we should be helping young men out and young women and all sorts of demographics.
Everyone, right?
We absolutely should. We should be helping everybody out.
Right.
You know, and I don't think what we're doing right now with young men is constructive.
Completely. I completely agree. And I know you have work soon, so we can start wrapping it up a little bit by the 5 o'clock mark. But you know, you mentioned talking about philosophies, and I think this is a perfect place to transition into, because I think with this whole crisis of masculinity, there's this false divide happening in between men and women, right? It's became men versus women, right? And what do you think of that?
I think the false divides come from all sorts of man. I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on here as well, so maybe we're gonna have to cut this out. I don't know. I think there's people on the top. Who have a vested interest in keeping people divided.
Yes.
And I think that men and women is just another one of those divides. Like, dude, I think in so many ways, our society had and still potentially has the opportunity to really come together and form like a cohesive unit that acknowledges our differences but accepts them.
Right.
You know, like I think like on like along racial lines, I think along ethnic lines, I think along religious lines, I think along just like just belief systems, right? Like you look at like I'm not trying to glorify, you know, earlier instances of Western society,
of course.
But if you look at what like in like the 70s, and we're Canadians, so this is America, but Republicans and Democrats would have like open dialogue. There was slight animosity. Obviously, they believed in different things, but the parties were much closer together than they are now.
Right.
Whereas now, it's almost just like if you're a Republican, you couldn't ever see eye to eye with someone who's Democrat, and vice versa.
Right.
And the same thing is with men and women. And I'm like, we have a lot of similarities. And and this is gonna sound so trite, but if we work together, you know what I mean, like with the strengths that are innate within women and the strengths that are innate within men, we could create like an amazing society that would be more just. It would be it would be more fair, more just. People would would be getting more out of society, and like we would be a collectively better off. But instead, I don't know what forces are at play. I just know there's some weird things going on, and I think that like there's a whole bunch of little forces and a few big forces, but like one of them is just the media likes clicks. The media likes clicks, and because they like clicks, they'll just go, bad man says outrageous thing about women, and they give this dude who's like just
they'll add race to it as
well. Absolutely,
exactly.
And I'm like, well, if I'm reading this and I'm not thinking it critically, you read this over your morning coffee, like you have work in 20 minutes, right? You can read one article. You're not like intensely reading this. You're just reading the headlines, you're kind of going through it, and then you get pissed off and you're like, oh, like, you know, like X group hates me.
Yeah.
They hate me, I hate them. And it's like, and it's like, whoa, dude, chill out. But the problem is that demographic, the media, the media loves that.
They do.
Because the more that they can ramp up your anger, the more you get clicking.
Yes. Right.
The more you get clicking.
Right.
And then they get more revenue. If they just said like, you know, two local people had cordial debate, you know, like
who cares?
they'd be like, oh, that's good for them.
Yeah,
you know, right? Like I'm going next to the next thing where some dude got punched in the face.
Yeah.
You know?
That's such a role.
Yeah, and just like the men and women thing, man, like just to go back to that, I genuinely think that's going on right now. Yeah, I think it's being monetized. I think that people aren't opening up their hearts and thinking critically about the other perspective of the other side, you know, which is hard to do sometimes. Like us as men, we've been living and we've had like male related struggles. Yeah. And then like when we hear women maybe like making jokes about it, our initial instinct is to get angry and we're like, hey, like no, like, but then we're like, they've just never experienced it. Yeah. They, you know, like just the same way that we've never experienced what they're going through.
We're all equal but different.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're different but equal to
and just
the other way.
It would be so powerful if we just opened up our hearts, which is so corny for me to say, but it's true. If we just opened up our hearts and just saw the other side's perspective and just actually acknowledged, hey, they have struggles that I'm not going through. Mm-hmm. Some of it's caused by me and the guys that I like, you know? And then the same applies to them. And I don't know, man. Yeah. I think there's a great potential for like...
So much potential. Like I read this thing. Like imagine if, because obviously most of history and history books, maybe you can correct me on this because this is kind of off the thing, were written by men, right? Mm-hmm. Like patriarchally and everything.
Absolutely.
But imagine if we read and had these reports of history from a woman's point of view. It'd be a lot less conflict, it'd be a lot less fighting, it'd be it would be a different perspective.
Yeah. Right? They actually do say that most man. They say that per capita, women rulers who have been throughout history. Okay. And I might be wrong. I think I'm right about this. This maybe is controversial. I don't think it's controversial. Okay. They've actually per capita started more wars. Yeah. Like you look at like Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth. Yeah. Man, they were ordering all sorts of slaughter. You know.
Oh, actually, I've heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
Right. I guess I'm looking more from like just the written it would be interesting to see that perspective, and also very slow side tangent. I noticed when you were talking there, you started off that sentence with like, I might be wrong. Yeah. And you changed that to, I think I'm right about this. Okay. I love that, bro. Okay. That was so cool. Cool. Okay. Yeah, it's like a lot of like, just confidence in what you're saying. Yeah. Like, yo, I might be wrong. Don't take me to like, yo, I think I'm right about this.
Yeah. Well, and if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. I don't know how many commenters you're going to have on this, but like, they might pick up on some tidbit where I'm just like, you know,
You had 2 hours and 25 minutes. That was false because of... Yeah.
Hey, man, people on the internet, it's crazy. I'm scared, dude. I'm scared of, like, those guys on the internet who, like, scour.
Yeah, look, they only get, like, 40 listeners per pod, so...
That's fine.
It's not too bad. But, yeah, it's just... I was thinking about this the other day, and I fell down this little rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. But we were talking about politics a little bit, and not to get too much into it, but... It's like we're aligning ourselves, going back to the identity thing, as right-wing, left-wing, conservative, liberal, you know, with a big false divide. And I was thinking, I don't even know what it means to be conservative, right? I don't know what it means to be liberal. Like my whole belief with this is that I have this idea, this one party that labels themselves as conservative also has this ideal, so I must be conservative. Mm-hmm. When at the same time, a lot of my ideals align with the other side, so it's so hard to like label that. And once you label that, you are with this team and you're fighting this other team. Mm-hmm. It's just removing the labels in general is...
Unfortunately, people just love to be part of something.
Which, yeah.
You know? People just like, they're like, oh, like, we're the red guys. You know what I mean? And you're the blue guys, which means that we don't like you. But, I mean, dude... Sorry, I don't have a whole lot of time. But I remember they did a thought experiment where they took a bunch of... And this isn't to throw Democrats under the table. Uh-huh. I wouldn't give myself really, like, left-leaning or right. I'd say I'm pretty central. Yeah. But I remember they did this with Democrats where they took Trump's certain versions of Trump's policies.
Yeah.
And they're like, look at what Bernie Sanders is doing.
Right.
This guy has it sorted out.
Right.
And all these Democrats came out and were like, yeah, this is all great. Like, these are great policies. Like, why are we not doing it? And then the study was like revealed, actually, these are all Trump's policies.
Right.
We just gave the name
Yeah.
to Biden. No, not to Biden, to Bernie Sanders in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys just went along with it. They basically revealed you're going along with it because it's associated with the name, who's associated with the party.
Yeah.
And you could totally do the opposite as well on Republicans. It just goes to show that we're not really engaging with the actual policies anymore.
Yeah.
We just see these figureheads and we
leech onto
latch 100%.
Yeah, leech. Latch. That's the
Sorry,
word
yeah.
And just to actually end this off, this is the last point I make. It's more of a question. I'm curious, but because my whole thing was like understanding that there's just so many levels to these things with labels and everything. I found, like you mentioned before, it's just easier to pull myself away from them and really just not associate myself with it, and I'm just focus on me and my circle and my community. But if you, and you can choose to not answer this if you want to, but if you really want to make these like grandstand changes, because obviously if we lived in a very like emotionally intelligent, intellectually intelligent society where everyone critical think things would be perfect and everything would work out, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
who knows?
Keep hoping.
Yeah, right, I'm sure there's still experiments on that. But if you really want to make changes to these type of things, like what in your mind do you see these scenarios looking like?
I'm just going to correct you quickly.
Yeah.
My perspective is like I focus on myself and I'm personally invested in myself.
Yes.
I don't totally disengage from the societal stuff.
Right.
I still analyze it and I still I still try to like logically look at things.
Yeah.
I just don't get emotionally invested. I'm like
Right.
because I've had so many beliefs, dude. Like I remember when I was like young when I was like a teenager, where I'd have these like powerful beliefs.
Okay.
You know what it's like to be some a kid who doesn't know what testosterone is like.
Fact
and you're like if see things my way, and I've had that proven wrong to me so much. Like those things that I hold like as like core beliefs proven wrong to me before, and I'm like, dude, I can't believe 18-year-old me thought that. Right. And so I'm like, I think this is true right now. But I'm totally open to be proven wrong. Yeah. And I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Right, I love that.
Because it's just like so I try to be knowledgeable. I'm not knowledgeable at everything. I try to be knowledgeable. I try to present my opinions. But if someone has an inverse opinion, I'm totally open to having that conversation and being proven wrong. Yeah. And then I've literally had it before where like usually I don't just switch, but I'll incorporate what someone says, and I'll be like, oh, that little tidbit that they said there was a critical thing, and that actually holds a lot of meaning.
Yes, right.
And I'm gonna incorporate that as well, and it softens my beliefs, and it makes it keeps me right in the middle. Right. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, the golden mean.
Circle all the way back to the start. Yeah, dude. I love that, man.
Cool, man.
That's perfect.
Yeah, dude.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. I'm really happy we did this, dude.
No, I am too. Yeah.